On the line with us, our buddy Alex Lawson, the president of Social Security Works, socialsecurityworks.org, strengthensocialsecurity.org, and A-Law 202 over on Blue Sky, as well as at socialsecurityworks.org. Alex, welcome back to the program. Doge, it turns out, Trump and Musk's little effort to kneecap our government, apparently stole all of my and your Social Security information and gave it to a right-wing conspiracy nut crank group illegally? I mean, how much of a felony is this?
Yeah, and Tom, you and your listeners are some of the folks who know this. I mean, we've been shouting it from the rooftop together since Doge plugged their computers into the mainframe. But what we know now is that the least that they've done bad is illegally give all of our data to a quote-unquote advocacy organization that is looking to overturn elections. There's been reporting by Judd Legume in Popular Information, and I think it tracks. You know, we don't know exactly because the filings don't name them, but True the Vote is the crank organization that, if you remember, we talked about at the time. Antonio Gracias, who was Elon Musk's lieutenant, his Doge guy in Social Security Administration, he went on stage in Wisconsin, remember, around the Supreme Court election, and him and Musk pointed at graphs and said, you know, tens of millions of illegal immigrants were given Social Security numbers so that they could vote. They were painting this completely false story, and we all knew it was false. And the danger, we said at the time, was that they would use all access they had, including all of our data, to try to prove this false narrative. And what that means is that at the very least, what Doge did is took all of our data and handed it to just somebody, right? And yes, it's important. This somebody is a crank, right? A right-wing crank. And so you think that they're protecting our data? I mean, if you or I or anybody listening, Tom, shared one person's Social Security information with a third party without their consent, you're talking about one felony. And this is everybody's data. And the worst,
340 million felonies.
At least, because this is just the one that was so egregious that, think about this, Trump's DOJ had to basically say something against themselves, his fully politicized DOJ. So think about all the stuff that they're not telling us about.
Wow, this is mind-boggling, Alex. Is anybody? I mean, why aren't these guys being prosecuted?
I mean, the big reason is because Trump has politicized the DOJ, right? So, I mean, he's literally directing the DOJ to prosecute his political enemies.
Is this not a violation of any state privacy laws? I guess because it's federal information, maybe it's not.
I think where it's starting is federal, but I do think that every single person has a case to be made that their data is, you know, or theft and misuse of their data is also a state-based issue. And so I hope a bunch of attorneys generals are looking into it. But right now, I think you've got Rep. John Larson, right, from Connecticut, our champion, our absolute unyielding champion on Social Security. He's already out today in the hearing calling for a criminal investigation because what's been done so far are just Hatch Act violations. So DOJ chose the smallest thing that they could to try to say, oh, yeah, we're doing something about this. But clearly, the reality is that dozens of federal laws have been broken by at least two individuals in the DOJ paperwork, who again are unnamed. So why is DOJ not naming them? Like, we need to know who has our data, who gave who our data illegally. And who has it now? What are they doing with it? We don't know if they've given it on to someone else. You can imagine that the entire Social Security database of America is worth a lot of money. And it's sitting on who knows how many unprotected servers. This is absolutely just the tip of the iceberg, Tom. And, you know, the news is reporting on it, so good. But also, we said this right at the beginning when they stole the data, you know, like, is anyone going to ask them why they need it, what they're doing with it? They're going on TV. Antonio Gracias and Elon Musk, they went on Fox News. They went on Joe Rogan. They made as much press as possible claiming all of this fraud in Social Security. Donald Trump gave a speech to the joint session of Congress and lied for 7 minutes straight about 120-year-olds. That was all part of this scheme. So it goes all the way to the top. And all that this DOJ filing on the Hatch Act violations does is it asks far more questions than it answers, right? Like, clearly a lot more went on here than they want anybody to know about. And we, the people whose data has been stolen, demand accountability. So congressional oversight, criminal investigation, everything has to be done, because this is, I would bet, will turn out to be the largest data theft in the history of America, possibly the world, when you're talking about the entire roster of the United States of America, every single one of us.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. It's truly mind-boggling. And it's also a security issue. I mean, you know, it's a personal security issue. If I can, just a couple other quick points here that I wanted to run by you, Alex. Mitt Romney is apparently calling for the cap to be slightly lifted or tweaked. You know, we know that if nothing is done, Social Security is going to be in trouble in about 5 years. But on the other hand, if billionaires and multimillionaires like Mitt Romney simply paid the same percentage of their income tax, or of their income as Social Security taxes, FICA taxes, then Social Security would be solvent for the next 75 years. And Bernie Sanders says everybody could get a $2,000 a year raise. So what's up with Mitt Romney?
This is, I mean, like, it depends on which way you want to look at it. A lot of politicians, right, when they have no power, right, they start saying and doing things that you're like, that would have been probably more useful when you had power. So I'm not like, oh, yeah, great job, Mitt Romney. Also, Mitt Romney is an avowed Social Security opponent. So this is primarily trying to cut us off at the pass before we can get billionaires and the ultra wealthy to pay the same rate as the rest of us. And as you said, that would allow us beyond 75-year solvency, and we expand benefits for everyone in this country. That's what we have to do. So Mitt Romney is like saying, oh, yeah, well, what if we only just did a little bit of that? And I don't think he's actually moved much from a little bit of taxes and a lot of benefit cuts. That's kind of my read of where he would be. So in many ways, just ignore Mr. Car Elevator and be like, yeah, we're gonna get all of your income taxed into Social Security. Don't you worry.
Yeah, there you go. And finally, what do we know about Trump's great health care plan? Fox News is talking about this like it's the reincarnation of Jesus or something. You know, it's gonna put an end to the need for Medicare and Medicaid and everything else. I don't see any plan here. Am I missing something?
You are not. It's just lies. I mean, it's the opposite of some sort of revelation. There is nothing there. Their plan is no plan. They barely have a talking point that sounds pretty good, right? We're going to give you the money. But that's just not a reality, right? That's not actually how the system works.
Right.
So they don't have a plan. Their plan is no plan. And they want to keep the story on will they, won't they, fix things that they broke? Do they have a plan? And all of that is so that we are not telling the very simple truth, which is Republicans destroyed our healthcare system, $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, right? You have ACA rates spiking. Every opportunity that they had to deal with healthcare, they did not. So to pretend that they are, oh yeah, they're just working on it. No, they're not. Hospitals are closing now. Nursing homes are closing now. People's premiums have already spiked. So they love keeping the media in this like, oh yeah, they're working on it story so that they can get around the fact that the changes that they've made will kill 56,000 new people a year, according to Yale Public Health School, right? And that's the most vulnerable people in our country, the oldest of the old, people with disabilities in nursing homes, seniors with disabilities, and all of that is so that they can give trillions of dollars in tax handouts to the richest people in the history of the world. So again, they want us to talk about them as like, oh, maybe they're only mildly the bad guys, to take our eyes off of the plain truth that what they have done, stealing our health care, destroying and working to degrade Social Security, marching armed troops into this country to violate the civil rights of millions of Americans. That's what's happening. That's what we should be talking about. That's what the Republicans are doing.
Yeah, and you know, saving Social Security has never been on their agenda. They've been fighting it ever since it was introduced in 1935. And soon, I'm concerned that we're going to see Medicare cuts as a result of the whole pay-go thing. You know, once those Medicaid cuts go into effect next year. Wild stuff. Alex Lawson, the president of Social Security Works, socialsecurityworks.org. Alex, thank you so much for dropping by.
Thanks, Tom.
It's always great talking with you. We always learn something. I truly appreciate it.
We say fight back!
Our book today is Jailbreak Out of History by Butch Lee. This is from the first chapter, Jailbreak Out of History, Harriet. Focus on Amazons, about why we deal with real women as myths, girls who never really existed. Yet and again, all are around us, and that we can't bring ourselves to see, because seeing through white men's eyes is about non-vision of ourselves. So let's deal with a real Amazon. Think about Harriet Tubman. Take 6 months. In fact, take a year and think. Break it on down. What does it mean to be the most famous new African woman in U.S. history? What does it mean to be stuck in that lie? What's the meaning of being famous while being hidden and disfigured and dissed? Let's jailbreak Harriet Tubman out of white history and place her in Amazon and new African, her story, her people's story. Harriet Tubman's life is a live weapon placed in our minds, showing us what it means to be an Amazon, which is why the capitalist patriarchy has forbidden us to touch on it for so long. In this, maybe for the first time, we can see Amazons as a future force in a clash of peoples and nations, not as myths, but as players in the whole difficult course of world politics. We can also appreciate the bittersweet tang of reality as the peeling away of layers of propaganda and disfigurement which have hidden Harriet from us exposes how much we assume and how little we have known. New African women have already pointed out the significant pattern of Harriet's exclusion. Cultural critic Bell Hooks said recently, I mean, if we could recover Ida B. Wells and Harriet Tubman to the extent that we've recovered, say, Zora Neale Hurston, I think that's an important contrast because people want to bury that revolutionary black female history. Historian Deborah Gray White connects Harriet's treatment to a larger pattern in the mainstream history of slavery, in which black women, quote, were reduced to insignificance and largely ignored, end quote. In examining the influential historian Stanley Elkins, she points out, quote, that Elkins seems to omit women altogether was accentuated by his description of slaves whom he identified as part of an American underground, those who never succumbed to Samboism. Among those mentioned were Gabriel, who led the revolt of 1820, Denmark Vesey, leading spirit of the 1822 plot at Charleston, and Nat Turner, an omission conspicuous by its absence, was Harriet Tubman. If Elkins had really been thinking of slaves of both sexes, he would hardly have forgotten this woman, who became widely known as the Moses of her people, end of quote. Patriarchal capitalisms, which only want Amazons to be exotic myths about forgotten ages, have hidden Harriet Tubman in her own fame. They both trivialize and exceptionalize her. These are tools of oppressor culture. The stripped down and censored version of her life is told in elementary schools all over the U.S. empire. So much so that everyone thinks they know her story already, although they don't. Harriet Tubman was born in slavery in Maryland around 1820. She escaped to the North when she was 29, but kept returning secretly to the South again and again to help other slaves escape. For this, she became known as Moses. True statements. But by limiting her, it becomes clever propaganda against her and against her people. Where patriarchy has been unable to deny that women do significant things, it denies the full meaning of what we do by trivializing them. Mary Daly, feminist philosopher, traces the enormity of what patriarchy has done to us. In ancient Greece, the goddess Hecate, also known as Artemis and Diana, was sometimes known as Trivia and represented by a three-faced statue. That was also the name used for the intersection of three paths, which in many old cultures were the sites of mystical power. She writes in Gynecology, quote, in light of the cosmic significance of the term trivia as the crossing of the three roads and of the goddess who bears this name, contemporary meaning of the term in English should be examined. The English term, which according to Merriam-Webster is derived from the Latin trivium or crossroads, is defined as common, ordinary, commonplace, of little worth or importance, insignificant, flimsy, minor, or slight. Of course, according to patriarchal values, that which is commonplace is of little worth. For in a competitive hierarchical society, scarcity is intrinsic to worth. Thus, gold is more important than fresh air, and consequently, we are forced to live in a world in which gold is easier to find than pure air, end quote. So to trivialize Harriet Tubman, the capitalist patriarchy pictures her as an idealized woman by their definition, who makes a life of helping others. Thus, her deeds are squeezed into women's assigned maternal role as nurturer, helper, and rescuer of men, who then go on to do important things. But Harriet wasn't repping Mother Teresa. She wasn't even any kind of civilian at all. She was a combatant, a guerrilla, a warrior carrying pistol and rifle, fighting in her people's long war for freedom, a war that rocked the foundations of African society, American society, and that has never gone away. Think about what it means to be called Moses, which was the code name other new Africans gave her, and which became Harriet's famous warrior name in the anti-slavery underground. When we check out the Bible, we can see that Moses was a ruthless visionary, someone who forced the boldest changes and risks upon his people so that they could survive, who led them out of captivity. To put it simply, Moses was a leader in a time of war. So too was Harriet Tubman. The book Jailbreak Out of History by Butch Lee.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Thursday. A lot going on in the world today and here in this country. What happens, though, when the world decides it can't trust America anymore? This is a very real problem for the United States. We'll talk about that in a moment. Also, the Republicans in the House of Representatives with one Democratic vote, Jared Golden of Maine, who's leaving his job at the end of the year, passed a Show Your Papers bill for voting. It will affect 146 million people. I'll tell you about that. Also, Donald Trump is fuming on his House loss on tariffs. 6 Republicans are apparently now in his crosshairs. We'll see how that works out. In the second hour of our program, Phil Ittner is going to drop by with a live report from Ukraine. And Pam Bondi was breaking the law in plain view by tracking the members of Congress who were searching the Epstein files. This is an Article 1 branch, 2 branch, spying on the Article 1 branch, which is clearly illegal. What somebody called the DOJ. Oh yeah, that's right. We'll get to that in the second hour. Also, MAGA fans are turning on Pam Bondi. I mean, when you've lost Nick Fuentes and Eric Erickson, you got a problem. How's the Trump administration going to deal with this? We'll talk about that in the second hour. In the third hour, Mary Trump is going to drop by. Why is Pam Bondi not being fired? And does her uncle, Donald Trump, have Alzheimer's? And Trump goes after Republicans for canceling a White House meeting that excluded Democrats. Didn't anybody tell him or tell them that you have to be 100% loyal or you'll be kicked out? I mean, it's just wild stuff. But my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com, my daily take, is titled, What Happens When the World Decides It Can't Trust America Anymore? Donald Trump is doing something to America that no foreign adversary has ever managed, something Putin's been dreaming about for decades. He's convinced our oldest and closest allies, countries we fought wars to defend and liberate, and with whom we share a democratic system of government, that the United States can no longer be trusted. For example, France's government just announced it's ripping U.S. video conferencing platforms, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, and others, out of its government offices nationwide and replacing them with a new French-created system called Visio. That's roughly 2.5 million French public employees who will no longer be using American digital products because the French have concluded that U.S. tech and the Silicon Valley billionaires' pathetic fealty to Trump, bringing in bribes and gifts and groveling in front of him, the French have concluded this is a national security risk. And it's not just France. The German state of Schleswig-Holstein just moved 44,000 employees off Microsoft and over to an open source platform and is now considering replacing Windows with Linux. They also dumped Microsoft's SharePoint file sharing system, going with an open source product called Nextcloud. We're no longer seen as a reliable partner. Many of our former allies now view us as a potential enemy. Denmark's government, Swiss authorities, Austria, and other European countries are exploring or implementing similar moves. The EU's senior official for tech sovereignty, Henna Virkkunen, said that Europe's dependence on American technology, quote, can now be weaponized against us. Seriously. ABC News reported this. This is a quote from their report. Quote, a decisive moment came last year when the Trump administration sanctioned the International Criminal Court's top prosecutor after that tribunal, based in The Hague, Netherlands, issued an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, an ally of President Donald Trump. The sanctions led Microsoft to cancel the International Criminal Court's prosecutor, Mr. Khan, cancel his email, a move that was first reported by the Associated Press and sparked fears of a so-called kill switch that big tech companies can use to turn off service at will. End of quote. It's the same reason Canada is reconsidering purchasing F-35s from America, which would be another major economic and strategic blow to us. Under a leader as corrupt, mentally ill, and erratic as Trump, few countries are willing to have their essential tech or defense infrastructure vulnerable to his whims and his tantrums. Even more shocking, the National Security Desk reports, quote, in a stunning shift announced today, NATO stripped the United States of command of all 3 of its operational level joint force commands, the 4-star headquarters responsible for leading the NATO alliance in crisis and war. For the first time since NATO's founding, every major operational command will now be led by European officers. The United Kingdom will assume command of JFC Norfolk in Virginia. Italy will take over JFC Naples, in Italy. And Germany and Poland will rotate leadership of JFC Brunsmund, which is in Germany. SACEUR, S-A-C-E-U-R, remains American for now, but only symbolically. Today's tectonic move makes a future European, SACEUR, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, a matter of timing, not theory, end of quote. This isn't about Europeans hating America any more than no kings protesters calling out Trump's fascist actions means they despise our country. Quite simply, European leaders, like millions of Americans, are looking at Donald Trump's naked embrace of Vladimir Putin, his open contempt for democracy, and his casual threats against NATO allies, and concluding that no critical tech or defense system should ever again depend on the whims of this narcissistic wannabe American strongman. Speaking of wannabe strongmen, ABC News added, quote, billionaire Elon Musk is also a factor. Officials worry about relying on his Starlink satellite internet system. You think? Analysts now explicitly warn that Trump's and his toadies' hostility to the European Union and his willingness to weaponize sanctions and economic tools have made Silicon Valley firms look more like extensions of an unpredictable strongman who ignores the law rather than the neutral digital providers they've historically positioned themselves as. After all, if you're a European defense minister or an interior minister, you have to ask yourself, what happens to our communications and data if Trump wakes up pissed off at us one morning because we didn't leap high enough when he yelled jump? Even more distressing, the damage isn't just confined to tech. It's hitting the very heart of the Western alliance system, which we largely created, that has kept relative peace since World War II. This has been Vladimir Putin's goal for decades, and now he's getting exactly what he wants from Donald Trump. When Trump said he would encourage, his word, Russia to attack NATO allies that he claimed weren't paying up, European leaders didn't shrug it off as a joke. European Council President Charles Michel called the comments reckless, correctly saying that such statements, quote, serve only Putin's interest, end quote, and undermine the core promise of mutual defense. Of course, serving Putin's rather than America's interests is exactly what Trump has been doing for a decade now. Even NATO's Secretary General felt compelled once again to publicly restate that Article 5, the pledge that an attack on one is an attack on all, remains ironclad, slapping down the President of the United States. As Senator Adam Schiff said in response to Trump threatening to unleash Putin on Europe, quote, he's more interested in aggrandizing himself and pleasing Putin than protecting our allies. It would be enough to make Reagan ill. Schiff's sentiments were echoed by Charles Michel, the president of the European Council. He said, reckless statements on NATO's security and Article 5 solidarity serve only Putin's interests. They do not bring more security or peace to the world. On the contrary, they reemphasize the need for the EU to urgently further develop its strategic autonomy and invest in its own defense. So here we are. The head of NATO and the head of the European Council reduced to reassuring the world that America's president doesn't speak for the alliance when he invites Russia to attack its members. Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland, couldn't have come up with something more bizarre. European security analysts now openly talk about low trust and ruptures and new realities in their relations with the United States. One EU security study notes that Trump has shown elements of active hostility against the European project, highlighting his bizarre, paranoid claim that the EU was set up to screw the U.S., as well as his refusal to rule out the use of force to annex Greenland. And now Trump has his emissary visiting right-wing and neo-Nazi parties and think tanks in Europe, offering them American cash and support. He and Putin appear totally committed to making the world safe for dictators and oligarchs by damaging all the democracies of the world. America's and democracy's enemies, of course, are thrilled. As one European think tank piece put it bluntly, Trump's rhetoric is, quote, a gift to Putin. When the President of the United States trashes NATO, praises autocrats, and undermines the EU, while half of Ukraine is being tormented by a brutal cold, the man in the Kremlin doesn't have to spend a ruble to fracture the West. Trump, like a dutiful dog, is doing it for him. And this isn't just elite hand-wringing in the level of governments and ministers. Ordinary Europeans are recalibrating their relationship with America, too. Surveys over the past year show European opinions of the United States dropping sharply, a reality we also see in the collapse of European vacationers to the United States. One EU institute reports that nearly 3/4 of Europeans now see the United States as somewhat or very unreliable partners. A broad survey across Britain, France, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Spain, and Italy found U.S. favorability down, sometimes by double digits, with only about 1 in 10 respondents expressing any real trust in Trump's America to defend them. Another poll summarized by Politico found that even a majority of Canadians now see the U.S. as a negative global force, driven largely by Trump's erratic behavior and his obsession with self-enrichment, having already collected an estimated $4 billion for himself and his family since he was sworn into office. Put simply, our allies are doing what any rational nation would do when a key partner goes rogue. They're hedging. They're hedging by building their own tech infrastructure so that Trump can't flip a switch and cut off vital services or demand backdoors into their communication systems or share information with Putin. So Trump can't hand them over to Putin the way he is Ukraine. They're hedging by embracing strategic autonomy, a.k.a. European defense capabilities that don't rely on Washington or anybody in America. Meanwhile, here at home, Trump and his lick-spittle Republicans are busily transforming America into exactly the kind of oligarchic strongman system our grandparents fought World War II to stop. I mean, this is absolutely terrible. He's pardoning insurrectionists, purging institutions, installing loyalists, covering up child rape crimes of his billionaire friends. I mean, this this authoritarian drift and external contempt. This is a disaster for America, this Trump administration.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
18 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Teresa in Bellevue, Washington. Hey, Teresa, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Hey, I was just going to run this by you and and your listeners. I heard some people talking about a prime protest day where everyone would buy a bunch of stuff and then return it, like they did at Home Depot kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just to, to protest Jeff Bezos.
Gutting the Washington Post.
Yes, and just generally sucking up to Trump. So yeah. I kind of looked online. I didn't see anything, but the idea was, right around Prime Day and only from the Amazon's basic store, so you're not hurting the vendors, but, buy a bunch of little, I was thinking straws for suck up, but, some little thing, and then just returning them, just like, hey, it's more of a statement than not buying. I think it kind of puts a little bit of a price on them. So, anyway, if any of your listeners have heard about it or know anything about it, I just thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it and haven't heard anything about it. The reason the one at Home Depot worked was because there were visuals. You had all these people standing in line to buy the cards and then to redeem them or to return them back in or whatever. And I don't see how, going after Amazon Prime the way that you're describing would accomplish that. So my guess is that it's not going to have the juice, because it won't get the media attention. Yeah,
unless you can get pictures of long lines out there, their return hubs, unless, you get long lines outside of a return hub or something. But anyway, just thought I'd see if anyone's heard or what everyone thinks about it.
Put the question out. Let's see if anybody responds. Thanks a lot, Teresa.
Okay.
Nice to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yep. Mark in Valley, Washington. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Hey, Tom. First, I want to give a shout out to other Washingtonians. I've been on disability from a back injury since 2007. I was recently hospitalized and had to have my left big toe amputated.
Ouch.
My doctor ordered me to stay into the hospital for 2 days, and Medicare declined to pay for the second day, saying I could have done this outpatient.
Oh, you must have Medicare Advantage.
No.
Medicare does not pre-approve things.
We're one of the test states for AI deciding that, aren't we not?
Oh, really? So you're the first example of Trump privatizing Medicare.
I mean, I've never had Medicare decline me since 2007 until this month.
No, Medicare doesn't do that. But,
well, they do now.
Yeah, in 5 states. I had forgotten that they were doing that, and that Washington State was one of those 5 states. Oh, my God.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you is, let's say Pritzker or Waltz wanted to deploy the National Guard to protect polling places from ICE. Could Trump nationalize them and make that stop?
Yeah, he could. He could.
Well,
I mean, it would be challenged in court, but by the time the court challenge worked its way through, it would be irrelevant. And that's one of the big advantages that Trump has, is that anything he does that's illegal or unconstitutional has to go through the court system, and the court system typically is, rather slow.
Well, you got Steve Bannon out there saying that's what they're going to do. So how are we going to get around this?
Well, we're just going to have to show up in absolutely mind-boggling numbers. My sense of it is that that's what's going to happen. And that's, of course, why they try to pass the SAVE Act to disenfranchise 80 million American women. So, but we'll see. Mark, I don't think they're going to make it. I don't think they're going to pull it off. There's a certain threshold of public opinion you just can't fight. And, I think we're there. Mark, thanks for the call. And thanks for this story. That's horrible. Thank you. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So MAGA Mike and the Republicans want a religious test for people running for public office. They want to know that you are sufficiently Christian to be worthy of being elected. Right. MAGA Mike is one of these 7 mountain evangelicals. There are 7 domains where these dominionists believe that we need to have religion completely take them over. Education, religion, family, business, government, military, arts and entertainment, and the media. Seriously. This is not what Jesus was preaching when he said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar and unto God what is God's. This is the opposite, in fact, of what Jesus was teaching. It's the opposite of Matthew 25, where Jesus said the only way to get to heaven is by feeding the hungry, healing the sick, helping the poor. This is counter-Christian, anti-Christian, in fact. In fact, I think you could say it is the Antichrist's work. There's a piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
We built the bridge in blood and fire. 70 years of standing guard. Now the signal's breaking on the wire, and the silence hits too hard. They're packing up the satellites, pulling plugs we thought were steel, turning off the American lights, teaching themselves not to feel. No tanks rolling through the night, no bombs falling from the sky, just a door closing slow and tight while we don't even ask why. They're walking away, step by step down Independence Day. Not with anger, not with rage.
Yep, our allies are walking away. I mean, it's happening. It's happening literally all over the world. Our allies are walking away, and Russia and China are picking up new allies as they abandon the United States. It's just mind-boggling. Meanwhile, the U.S. House passed legislation yesterday. It was a 218 to 213 vote. Only one Republican he didn't vote against it. He just didn't vote at all. That was North Carolina's Greg Murphy. And one Democrat, Representative Henry Cuellar of Texas, voted for this. It's the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, the SAVE Act, which would make it illegal for most married women to vote. And, this follows Trump's comments that he wants to nationalize elections. And his more than 24 Department of Justice lawsuits demanding that Democratic-run states turn over their voting rolls so that Trump can look at them and purge them or whatever. It also requires each state to send an official list of eligible voters for federal office to Homeland Security. The measure would take effect immediately, of course, because this is all about the 2026 elections, this November's elections. And Terry Sewell, a Democrat from Alabama, said Republicans know they can't win on the merits, so rather than change their policies, they're trying to change the rules. John Lewis was not bludgeoned on a bridge in my hometown for the Republicans and Donald Trump to take these rules away from us. This is a blatant power grab, as Democrats will, and we as Democrats will not stand for it, she said. She represents Selma. It's really, really remarkable. We'll be right back. 6 Republicans, by the way, voted against Trump yesterday. Where's that going? And your calls next.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
More news and your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. Book for the Thom Hartmann Book Club today is A Nation Forged by Crisis, A New American History by Jay Sexton. And I'm reading from the introduction. This is page 9. The quest for national security and global power, America's shifting position in the international economy, and fluctuations in immigration have made the United States the nation that it is today. Americans' foreign relations have been conditioned its history not only in their cumulative effects over the long haul, but also as a result of their volatility. In periods of crisis, America's position in the world has lurched in unexpected directions. For as inexorable as the rise of the United States appears in retrospect, there have been contingent moments in which the very existence of our nation was up for grabs. This is the essence of crisis. The world turned upside down, the known replaced by the unknown, panic reigning as people struggle to maintain their balance and shifts in the very ground beneath their feet. It came with a speed and ferocity that left men dazed, New York Times correspondent Elliot Bell wrote of Wall Street's catastrophic collapse in October of 1929. Quote, the market seemed like an insensate thing that was wreaking a wild and pitiless revenge upon those who thought to master it, end quote. Crises are contagious, spreading like viruses from one realm to another. It's not without reason that the word crisis was associated with medical conditions and health scares in the 19th century. Each of the periods under consideration in this book were less a singular crisis than a set of interlinked crises. A political crisis could trigger an economic panic, which in turn could intensify social conflict, and so on. As these pandemics spread through the body politic, crisis itself was normalized, becoming an almost accepted characteristic of an age. Just as foreign crises have spread to the United States, domestic ones have spilled across its borders, unsettling foreign countries and peoples, as well as reconfiguring America's connections to the world. Consider the fateful winter of secession that followed the 1860 election of Abraham Lincoln. The crisis over slavery that divided the Union into warring sections that led to a series of sharp reversals in America's position in the global system. The foreign capital that had rushed into the roaring American economy in the preceding decades suddenly began to flee. Indeed, more capital left the United States in 1860 to 1862 than came into it. Also a once-in-a-century occurrence. One of the world's most valuable commodities and America's largest exports, Southern cotton, was confined to the ports of the Confederacy as a result of Richmond's ill-fated diplomatic strategy, leading to unemployment and social unrest in the British textile town of Lancashire. The most unexpected reversal was how the national security that the United States had attained after the war against Mexico in the 1840s was suddenly imperiled, with European powers encroaching once again upon the Western Hemisphere. Meanwhile, the Confederate emissaries across the Atlantic were in search of alliance with Britain. Our country, Secretary of State William Seward lamented in early 1861, after having expelled all European powers from the continent, now threatened to relapse into an aggravated form of its colonial experience, and like India, Turkey, China, and Italy, become the theater of transatlantic intervention and rapacity. A wider view of American history that looks beyond the nation's borders brings into focus not only the migration patterns, economic flows, and international rivalries that have connected the United States to the world, but also those rare moments in which the very existence of the nation was in question. Perhaps none was more pregnant with implications than the autumn of 1877, when the fate of the Patriots' bid for independence hung in the balance. Having proclaimed their independence to the world the previous 4th of July, their cause had stalled on the battlefield and in the diplomatic courts of the old world. I think the game is pretty near up, Washington privately confessed at year's end. To accomplish their independence is not quite so easy as to declare it, the British philosopher Jeremy Bentham haughtily remarked. But then a series of events forever changed the course of modern history. The stunning Patriot victory at the Battle of Saratoga in October, the drafting of the Articles of Confederation in November that, for all its limitations, further demonstrated the political resolve of the Americans. And most of all, the alliance signed with France in February 1778, which provided the Patriots with the resources, military assistance, and naval power that ultimately tipped the scales in their favor. There are comparable Saratoga moments in other crises in U.S. history, as we shall see. These contingent moments played out in their own distinctive ways, but are joined by a common denominator that has been curiously forgotten in our age of U.S. global power. Foreign states and people have played decisive roles in the critical moments of American history. As we make our way through our own era of global instability, in an unprecedentedly interconnected world, there's perhaps no more important lesson from the past to keep in mind. Crisis may beget crisis, Franklin Roosevelt said, as his administration transitioned from battling the Great Depression to entering the Second World War. But the progress underneath does not wholly halt. It does go forward, end quote. Like so many of Roosevelt's public statements, this one reveals a truth even as it conceals others. The United States came out on the other side of its greatest crises as a stronger and more efficiently organized nation, as Roosevelt suggested. The process of mobilizing resources to counter threats catalyzed innovations in political economy, such as the creation of a national financial system during the Civil War, and the economic reforms of the New Deal. The book is A Nation Forged by Crisis by Jay Sexton. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
In marble halls, they whisper slow, behind the flags where the shadows grow. 49 stand firm, 51 must rise to break the chains and clear the lies. The floor is cold, the air's grown thin. They talk of rules that boxed us in, but the thunder rolls from every side. It's time to let the people decide. A republic, if you can count to 51. The fight's not over, it's just begun.
Welcome back, 35 minutes past the hour. So Democrats just basically trounced Donald Trump yesterday in the House of Representatives. Now, this vote is largely symbolic, not because the thing behind it is symbolic, but because it has to go to the Senate where it'll be filibustered. And even if a handful of Republicans in the Senate went along with it, like happened in the House, Trump will veto it. But basically, this legislation was put forward saying that Donald Trump's tariffs against Canada, which have ignited this kind of not just a trade war, but almost a culture war against Canada, are illegal or no longer stand, essentially. Hakeem Jeffries said, quote, "For months, sycophantic Republicans in the House have tried to block us from acting on behalf of the American people. Today, House Democrats forced a successful vote to detonate the Trump tariffs on Canada." And detonate they did. Republicans who joined the Democrats. Don Bacon of Nebraska, who's leaving office. Thomas Massie of Kentucky, the guy who co-authored the Epstein Transparency Act. Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. Kevin Kiley of California. Dan Newhouse of Washington State. And Jeff Hurd of Colorado. Jared Golden from Maine, a Democrat, voted with the Republicans, basically. But here you've got 6 Republicans now. It started out, it was just like, 1 or 2, hey, it's Thomas Massie and MTG, and maybe a little Lauren Boebert in there. Now it's growing. And wait until the primaries are over. Once these Republicans in the House of Representatives and the Senate have won their primaries, Katie bar the door. It's going to get wild. So what's on your mind today? Steve in Janesville, Wisconsin. Hey, Steve, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Good to hear from you.
Thank you.
Boy, we sure are lucky to have you as a standing on our side. Your show opening today was a real eye-opener.
Well, thank you, Steve.
What I really called for, yeah, you bet. What I really called for, the radio station I listened to this morning, the show preceding your show, they said there was a photo of Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, and Pam Bondi together. Then they said that there was the home that Howard Lutnick lived in beside Jeffrey Epstein. He bought that from Jeffrey Epstein. And I'd like to hear your comment on that.
Yeah, the picture. I'm not sure which show you're referring to, but to the best of my knowledge, there is a photo that's been, this widely distributed and pops up on the internet all the time, of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein with a blonde woman who is smiling or laughing as she's talking to them. And she kind of looks like Pam Bondi. It's not. It's definitely not Pam Bondi. So that is that's misinformation. In terms of in terms of your second question, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
So sorry.
And yeah. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Good talking to you, Steve. Thank you. Bob in Cleveland, Ohio. Hey, Bob. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I'm calling to talk about voting. Mm-hmm. There's quite a bit of anxiety between Greg Palast and some of these other callers you've had over the last few weeks about, worried about the 2026 election. Mm-hmm. Well, there's at least 11 states that have primaries coming up. So the first voting is not going to be in November. It's a matter of weeks away for some states. So,
that's an interesting point.
Some of the things that people can do is, rather than worry about what may happen, get active now. Mm-hmm. Check your registration. If you're not registered, register to vote. And I work as a poll worker here in Ohio, and
good on you.
You can always sign up to work at your local board of elections.
Tell our listeners, Bob, how to do that. If you want to become part of the solution, if you want to be a poll worker, tell us how to do that.
Well, now every state is different, but here in Ohio, you just go to your local. Well, actually, it's county by county board of elections. Mm-hmm. Other states, it may be a different board of elections.
Sure.
But here in Ohio, there's a website, and you can literally sign up via the website.
Wow, that's great.
I'm also, want to say that here in Ohio, there's been a shortage of poll workers. I mean, the last couple of election cycles, they said, hey, if you know anybody that's willing to work, tell them to contact us. So I kind of assume that, maybe, since the business where Trump's minions were threatening poll workers, a lot of people, especially as I was growing up, it was always, little old ladies that were, working at the polls.
Yeah.
Now,
my mom used to do that.
Yeah, they don't want to put up with that,
yeah.
And so I think that's where the shortage of workers.
Yeah.
So, but the reason,
and by the way, if I could just insert something here, becoming a poll worker isn't just like doing your service to your country and to democracy. It's also a great example for your children. I think part of the reason why I'm so interested in politics is because when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, every time we had an election, my mom would volunteer to be at my elementary school, as a poll worker. And I would come down and I'd hang out with her and I'd watch her, check people in and compare their signatures and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So you're a great example for your kids, too.
Well, and the other thing that, I was not surprised, but I think some people, based on conversations I've heard on your show, may be surprised to find out how many people, regardless of whether they have an R or a D after their name, are actually dedicated to pulling off a fair and free election.
Right.
So
yeah, there's a lot of good Republicans out there. My mom was one of them.
Yes. The other reason I wanted to focus on the primaries is because I don't know what it's like nationwide. I'm going to kind of extrapolate, but in Ohio, only about 10% of the people show up for the primaries. Well, there's been a lot of complaining on your show and other shows that people don't feel well represented. Well, when you only have 10% of the people deciding who's going to be the candidate in November, right, you're not going to get, a fair representation for the vast majority of people. So, if you want better candidates, start showing up for every election, not just every 4 years for the presidential.
Well, and not only that, in 2018 or 19, the Supreme Court ruled that if you miss an election, your state can purge you from the voting rolls. And
yes, that's here in Ohio, too.
It was a lawsuit against Ohio that brought that case to the Supreme Court. It was U.S. versus Husted. And now that states can do that, now I don't know of any blue states that routinely do this, but this is becoming common practice in blue cities in red states. The red states are purging people from their voting rolls. Like in Ohio, they would be doing it in Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati. Cities where you've got a preponderance of or a majority of Democratic voters. They're purging people from the voting rolls for not showing up in 2 consecutive elections, and or even in some cases missing 1 election. And so, if you live in a red state, double check your voter registration if you missed the last election, and
right.
Be sure to pick up this one.
If you get purged, re-register.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Bob, thank you. You just did a marvelous public service, and good on you.
Be well, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the call. This is the kind of stuff. This is the on the ground nitty gritty. Get your hands dirty, get out there, get involved stuff that makes a democracy work, that keeps a democracy intact, and that, like I said, provides a great example for young people. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, come on, give me a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Dennis in Aptos, California. Hey, Dennis, what's on your mind today?
I've got a lot of things on my mind, Tom, and good morning. I have to wonder if the SAFE Act passes, and do you think it might? I mean, I know it could be filibustered, but who knows if they'll get rid of the filibuster for like 1 day.
There's actually talk of that among the Republicans in the Senate, and I doubt it'll happen. But I've reached the point now with this administration where nothing would surprise me.
Yeah, I'm there too. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump just cancels the election on some flimsy thing. Yeah. It's scary right now, and all I can say is everybody out there these young kids in particular, and I know some. They cannot be standing on the sidelines like they did in 2024 because, Biden and Gaza. Their whole future. I mean, we're 70. I'm 71. You're 74 or 5. Most of our life is gone. But these kids that are in their 20s, they got 50, 60, 70 years ahead of them. Do they really want to live their lives under something like Putin or Orban or Erdogan or any other tin-pot dictator that you can think of.
Trump.
So I hope they're waking up. I mean, I know a lot of them have been out there protesting, but then again, see a lot of old people protesting. And, you know, it's one of these things where you have these people in middle America who really are apolitical. They care about the NFL football or NBA, you know, sports-oriented, and want their kids playing all these games. But and they want, you know, food on the table at a cheap price. And unfortunately, not enough of them want to buy EVs, so they want to have cheap gasoline. So it's like being for something that really isn't good overall for the whole country.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I can say if, you know, Trump has, you know, he wants the Republicans to keep the majority, because then he can keep doing what he's doing.
Oh, he's desperate. It's not just so he can keep doing what he's doing. It's so that he won't get impeached. It's so that he won't get exposed. It's so that his crimes won't be highlighted. It's so that there won't be a serious investigation into, you know, if Jamie Raskin was not exaggerating, and I suspect he was not, you know, that Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files more than 1 million times, really? You know. More than
Moskowitz said his name is in the Epstein files more than Harry Potter's name is in the Harry Potter series.
In all 7 novels. And also he said his name is in the Epstein files more frequently than God's name is in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's like,
which Bondi took great umbrance over.
Yeah, poor Bondi.
Yeah, well, you know, we saw Slotnick get her panties in a twist over Waltz's comments that ICE acts like the Gestapo. How dare you?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I would be. I'm reluctant to use slurs like that, Dennis. But I get it. I get it. And I you know, now you've got. Well, I'm going to talk about it in the second hour. You've even got conservatives now coming out and saying she's got to go. And Trump, of course, tweeted this morning how wonderful she is. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, she said how wonderful he is.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's all about, you know, if you lick his boots enough, he'll be okay with you for the moment. Dennis, thank you for the call. It's 49 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. America is suffering from an epidemic of bullying. And one of the things we know is that culture, including bullying, flows from the top down. We've seen studies where when issues of, for example, being gay or transgender are being debated in the public, gay and transgender kids in school are more likely to be bullied. When racial issues are being discussed, people of minority races are more likely to be bullied. Well, now we've got a man who has literally built his career on being a bully, Donald Trump, as president, or was president, you know, as candidate. And he is driving this insane bullying campaign and using it as a political weapon across the United States. And it's contagious. It's dangerous. There's an entire article about it over at HartmannReport.com titled America's New Epidemic, A Nation Overrun by Bullies. Check it out. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Monica in Jefferson, Georgia. Hey, Monica, what's up?
Oh, hi. I'm so glad that I can talk to you. I have a comment to make about Greenland. Mm-hmm. I'm getting a channel. I have to buy it. It's called Euronews.
Oh, Euronews. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. I get all my information from there. Well, when Trump was in Davos in Switzerland and gave this big speech, and he wanted to get Greenland. Well, apparently, after he gave the speech, the governments there, they had a comment, and the one government said, if he wants to have Greenland, by force. It's not going to happen. Apparently, we owe a lot of money to the European governments.
Yeah,
And,
I'm not sure about that, but we owe over $1 billion to the UN, and the UN may have to shut down in about 5 months if we don't pay up. And Trump hasn't paid any of our bills last year or so far this year. Monica, I've got to pick up John Parker here, but thank you for pointing that out and for mentioning Euronews. John Parker with KTNF, our AM 950, our affiliate in Minneapolis at St. Paul. He's the host of The Gailey Show every day at 2 o'clock. And John, is it true that, I get it that Holman this morning said, okay, we're out of here. But I'm not sure I believe anything that comes out of his mouth.
Neither do we. So hi, Tom. It's good to be back. It's interesting the difference in political reactions that are happening right now. We're getting a flurry of statements that we're still all trying to dissect. It's interesting how Governor Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, Senator Klobuchar seem to be really on board and saying this is happening. There are others like the Minneapolis City Council President, St. Paul Mayor Kali Herr, Attorney General Ellison, who are like, well, show us the evidence before we'll actually believe it. Right. There are still a lot of major questions that are happening here. First of all, we just still have really violent detentions going on. I'm looking at one here in a McDonald's where a person with his work papers who was, had his car broken into by ICE agents, and he was dragged and detained out of there. He's been here for 20 years, has no criminal record whatsoever. Right. Just a few minutes ago, there was someone forcibly detained, kind of in a car pursuit. Again, here, actually just a few blocks from where I'm at. So the detentions are still happening. They're still pretty violent. And this is the thing, though, is like when you go to a restaurant here in the Twin Cities right now, a lot of them are locked. You have to ring a doorbell to get in. Wow. So if there are still 150 agents, which is Walz is suggesting is what the number was before Operation Metro Surge happened, how are those 150 still going to be behaving? Are they going to still be using the tactics that they have been using over the past 8 weeks?
Of course they are.
So people will feel trusting that they can open their doors again, and we don't have to be screening people when we're going into businesses. There's the question that wasn't answered today about all the people that were wrongly detained in other states now. Are they going to be brought back? The court system is completely inundated right now. There is a bare bones staff in the attorney's office here handling all sorts of claims of people being wrongly detained. So how are all those cases going to play out? And then there's a lot of folks that are concerned about what did Holman mean. He kept talking about unprecedented levels of coordination with state officials. So we're trying to unpack, well, what was that unprecedented level of coordination here? Some people in organizational that have been opposing the ICE have said, is this caving? What type of caving happened here when he keeps saying there were unprecedented levels of coordination?
Or is he just blowing smoke?
Correct. That's what we're trying to... Right, exactly. So the legislative session starts here next week. So there's already announcement of a $10 million zero-interest loan program that can be forgiven within 1 year, up to 50% of that, because the economic impact is just devastating right now. So they're literally looking at what we did during COVID to try now to jumpstart a economic recovery
try to keep your businesses
here in
collapsing.
Minnesota.
And I think the larger story here, John, is that if Donald Trump decides he's going to take down a city, he's going to destroy its economy and terrorize its citizens, he's proven he can do it with no consequence whatsoever to him.
Right.
I mean, it's just mind-boggling. Right. Do we have any idea where they're going next?
That wasn't announced today in the press conference or any of the statements. Walz is also just sort of like, well, they're going to go wherever they're going to go next.
We heard a couple of weeks ago that next might be Springfield, Ohio, because there's a lot of black-skinned Haitians there. And, of course, this is all about the darker your skin, the more likely it is that Trump and Miller want to get you the hell out of the country.
1 minute. Well, to your point now, there's actually some really good polling that came out yesterday from NBC News Decision Desk and the local KARE 11, who's the local NBC affiliate, and the Star Tribune. And he is tanking right now, particularly in the suburbs, which determine how our legislature is going to go. So he is underwater. MAGA's underwater pretty significantly. So, you know, there may be accountability that he has here, that MAGA has here. You know, a Republican hasn't won statewide race since 2006.
When are your primaries?
But the primaries are the first week of August.
Oh, that's quite a ways down the road.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of primaries.
But given that we'll be still feeling the economic impact for a very long time now, this is not something that people are going to forget. I don't think anytime too soon, particularly people in the suburbs.
I think you're right. The great John Parker, host of The Gailey Show, every day 2 o'clock Central Time on KTNF, AM 950 in Minneapolis, St. Paul. John, thank you for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom.
Always great talking to you. I'll be back on the other side of the break with Phil Ittner, live from Ukraine. What's going on there? How is Donald Trump working hand in glove with Vladimir Putin today? Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Homewreckers by Aaron Glantz, a Pulitzer Prize finalist. The subtitle is How a Gang of Wall Street Kingpins, Hedge Fund Magnates, Crooked Banks, and Venture Capitalists suckered millions out of their homes and demolished the American dream. It's quite a subtitle. This is from chapter 21, titled Triumph of the Homewreckers. Donald Trump took the oath of office on a chilly Friday morning, delivering an inaugural address that promised an end to the corruption and impotence that had widened America's historic wealth gap. He understood that his victory had been propelled by harnessing the public's rage and envy at having been left behind in the economic recovery, and that he promised that he would not forget it. Evoking FDR's famous Forgotten Man speech from 1932 that promised to prioritize the needs of, quote, the man at the bottom of the economic pyramid, Trump declared, quote, the forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. Politicians had prospered, he said, but jobs had evaporated, factories closed. Quote, the establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little chance to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. This all changes, starting right here and right now, Trump proclaimed, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. This is your day. This is your celebration. End of quote. The moment, however, belonged not to the great mass of struggling Americans, but to the new president's most ardent supporters, flamboyant businessmen who profited off the pain of the housing bust and were now poised to steer the ship of state for at least the next 4 years. As Trump reached out his hand and swore to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, his close friend and inaugural committee chair, Tom Barack, stood behind him, smiling in a blue scarf and black overcoat. Afterward, Barack and Trump embraced at the U.S. Capitol's inaugural platform. The homewreckers had arrived. Barack didn't take an official position in the Trump administration, reportedly turning down an offer to be White House Chief of Staff, Treasury Secretary, or Ambassador to Mexico. Roger Stone told me he could have had any position he wanted, but working for the government would have meant making a lot less money. I don't think he has the belly for public service, Stone observed. Other homewreckers had no such qualms. If they changed the rules of the game now, they could make more money later. Steve Mnuchin, by now dubbed the foreclosure king by his critics, was confirmed as Treasury Secretary. His top deputy at One West, the bank, Joseph Otting became the nation's chief bank regulator, the comptroller of the currency. Wilbur Ross, the bankruptcy tycoon who bought Florida's Bank United, became the Commerce Secretary, charged with everything from negotiating trade deals to overseeing the U.S. Census. Steve Schwarzman, the chairman of Blackstone, became chair of the White House's Strategic and Policy Forum, a group of business leaders who were to meet regularly with Trump. Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase was named vice chair. Though the group disbanded over the summer after Trump's statement that bigotry and violence on many sides were responsible for a white nationalist's killing a counter-protester in Charlottesville, Virginia, Schwarzman, along with Barack, is said to be among a small group of outsiders, including Sean Hannity, who are put directly through to the president rather than being routed through the normal communications channels. Hannity reportedly chats with Trump nightly. Schwarzman has flown on Air Force One. On February 12, 2017, less than a month into Trump's presidency, while the commander-in-chief was dining with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan at his Mar-a-Lago golf club, Schwarzman threw a massive 70th birthday bash at his Four Winds estate, barely a mile and a half away. This time, neither Donald nor Melania Trump could make it, but daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner did, along with Mnuchin, Ross, and a who's who of high finance and culture, from Henry Kravis, co-founder of the hostile takeover firm Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, to the fashion designer Donatella Versace. The party featured live camels, trapeze artists, fireworks, and a gondolier. Schwarzman's tennis courts were covered with Asian-themed staging. The man who'd hired Patti LaBelle to sing Happy Birthday for his 60th was serenaded by Gwen Stefani on his 70th. After Happy Birthday, the peroxide pop star took a, quote, a quick twirl with the birthday boy around a dance floor constructed inside a two-story tent where acrobats shimmied and jumped, the New York Times reported. Unlike a decade before, when Schwarzman's glorious pre-bust bash sparked condemnation from sources as conservative as the Wall Street Journal, this time the festivities sparked very little blowback. In her story, Bloomberg reporter Amanda Gordon reveled in the comparison with Schwarzman's 60th. There were some differences, though, she wrote. Remember that beautiful fur coat on Melania Trump? It was New York in February on a weeknight. This time, no bundling required, with many folks golfing and swimming all day before a balmy night and fireworks alongside a full moon. Howard Marks, the co-chairman of Oak Tree Capital, a vulture firm that had bought and flipped 3,000 foreclosures, told Gordon, quote, "The world is an uncertain place. A lot of people are unhappy with a lot of other people. There are a lot of things that people are upset about. So it's nice to have an evening where everybody's happy, harmonious, and upbeat." End quote. There was a lot of celebrating to be had. In June, the gang got together for the marriage of Steve Mnuchin and his third wife, actress Louise Linton, almost 2 decades younger than him. And then it continues from there. The book is Homewreckers by Aaron Glantz.
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. On the line with us, our buddy Phil Ittner, the veteran war correspondent based out of Kyiv, Ukraine. Philip Ittner on YouTube, Ittner Philip on social media. Phil and his great podcast, On the Edge. is, really worth tracking down. Phil, welcome back to the program. How are you?
All things considered, fine. Thank you, Tom. We're experiencing slightly warmer weather this week, so that's a welcome change. Obviously, with the attacks that the Russians have been doing on the heating, the electrical, and other infrastructure here, it's been tough. Little bit more power today than normal. Last night, however, it has to be said, the Russians started attacking around midnight, and they didn't stop until around 2:30 in the morning. And it was every 20 minutes there was something. Every 10, 20 minutes there was something coming in, and we were getting anti-aircraft stuff going up, which is encouraging. But it deprives one of sleep. It's impossible to sleep through some of these things. And, this comes as they're supposedly doing, peace negotiations. And what we experienced last night from the Russians was not particularly encouraging for the continuation of peace.
Yeah, it's just another pathetic example of our president, Donald Trump, kissing Vladimir Putin's ass. This is the most disgusting thing. I don't understand how Americans are not outraged. I don't understand why the American press is not talking about this every day. I know that they've all fled the country. They basically, there's no more American reporters in Ukraine, as far as I can tell. Or am I wrong about that? Because I'm not seeing anything on any.
No, sadly. Yeah, as a former member of the press corps, I worked for 30 years and this is not a humble brag, but I worked at the highest levels of American and British broadcast news. And so I've seen how the sausage is made. And you're right. It's absolutely disgraceful, the fact that we are not covering this as much as we should. Thousands of people are going to die because the Russians have been targeting civilian infrastructure during one of the harshest winters in Ukrainian recent history. And it's when the postmortem is done, when the calculations are finally figured out, how many people died because the West has been
shall we say?
Screw it, feckless. In their support of Ukraine, and it's very distressing to me to see this. We've been knocked off the air for the last better part of 2 months now because there just simply is not enough electricity to run the lighting in our studio, and even here at home. In my apartment, I'm relying on candles and batteries and things like that for lighting. And I just simply can't do that in a studio where you need professional grade lights and cameras and things like that. I mean, that's the kind of quality of product that we want to put out. Now, thankfully, we have been in touch with an organization that is doing a GoFundMe called Generators for Ukraine. And it has contributors such as Lev Parnas, who, of course, is a Ukrainian native, but lived most of his life in America, and his cousin, who I am directly in contact with here on the ground, Malcolm Nance, is also involved in this effort to raise money for generators, because this is the urgent need right now. I still support another organization that does vehicles, but right now, given the environmental circumstances, we're trying to raise money to get as many generators in as we can. And it was decided amongst us that one of the generators would be given to the studio.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week.
I'd like to say I've taken custody of it because, of course, if there's a life or death situation, we're going to be sending it elsewhere.
Yeah.
But we think the information war is still very important. And because of the point that you make, that the Western press has completely abandoned this very important story. I mean, this is life or death stuff. And not only that, historically very important, because however this war is resolved, whatever happens, the world will not be the same because Europe will be changed forever. Yeah. And East-West relations between Moscow and Western powers will not be the same after this war. They just won't. Now, whether Moscow comes out on top and they get advantage, or whether or not the West defends itself using the shield of Ukraine, and this is not something that Ukrainians regret. I mean, they will fight this war with or without the West. This notion that the West will fight until the last Ukrainian doesn't take into account the agency of Ukrainians. They know their enemy better than anybody else, and they never want to bend the knee to Moscow again. Yeah. So they will fight regardless. But where's the West? Where is the West? And as I say, we don't have a choice. Vladimir Putin decided that he was going to try to restore the Russian Empire, and that wasn't up to us. It had nothing to do with NATO expansion. It had nothing to do with anything else except for Russian imperial aspirations. And without the cornerstone of their empire, which is the colony of Ukraine, much like the cornerstone of the British Empire was in many ways Ireland, the colony of Ukraine has said no. Never again. Yeah. And so we continue to try and carry Ukrainian messages, and that's why we've decided to take one of our generators from this effort and get that program back on the air. So we will have, if all goes according to plan, and I hate to jinx myself, we will have another episode this Sunday with members of the Generator for Ukraine effort. And we're going to talk, and we've already recorded it. It's just a matter of whether we can edit it and get it posted, because obviously with the lack of electricity, internet is difficult. So we're going to try and get that out this Sunday. And the through line of it is that Ukraine will never bend the knee to Moscow again. And Moscow can try and take away heating, can try and take away light and electricity and everything else. But Ukrainians, and I have seen this with my own eyes, and I've spoken to people, and I have colleagues and friends and members of the On the Edge team who say, we don't like this. We're not happy. We're suffering. But we're never, ever going to surrender to Moscow again. Yeah. And I think the West needs to recognize that, and recognize that it's not up to them whether or not this war is happening. It was a decision by Moscow.
Don't you think that
Vladimir Putin?
Don't you think that the European countries, particularly the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Poland, are fully aware of the fact that if Ukraine falls, they're next?
Yes, they are absolutely aware of that. And it doesn't mean that actually Russia would have to roll tanks into Warsaw. It's simply the threat that if they were able to actually regain control of Ukraine, it would change the power dynamics in the entire continent. Right. And so Poland,
because Ukraine is the largest country in Europe, isn't it?
Largest country in Europe, one of the potentially most prosperous countries in Europe, the breadbasket of not only Europe, but of huge parts of the world. That's right. This is a very, that's right, and the Horn of Africa and the subcontinent. Mm-hmm. This is a country that has so much at its disposal. It will be a major contender on the European stage, and I would argue the global stage. Now, they have a lot of things that they got to do. This is not going to be easy. A lot of reforms are going to have to be made. A lot of recovery is going to have to be done after the war. But this is going to be an incredibly powerful and influential country.
Agree. Let's talk. Time is passing quickly here as we're approaching a break. Let's talk about the war itself. I saw a couple of headlines this week, and I didn't dig into the articles at great depth, figuring that I'd talk to you about it, suggesting that the Russians are actually on the verge of taking a couple of major cities, or a couple of cities that are consequential. Is that the case?
There's a row of cities called fortress cities, and they're out in the east, and they run along a northern axis of where the front line is, and it's the bulwark of Ukraine, because if you can get past that, you get into some open territory which would allow the Russians to maybe advance at a quicker pace. Right. They would still have to deal with a major city called Kharkiv, but right now it looks like they're fighting for a critical hub for logistics and transportation for these so-called fortress cities. If that should fall, then we move on to the fight for the fortress cities themselves. Right. Now, having said that, the Russians fight for cities built for 60,000 people over a course of months. The cities that I'm talking about, these so-called fortress cities, which are industrialized cities with factories and foundries and places that could be made into strong points and basically, easily defended positions, are built for hundreds of thousands of people. So, despite the fact that they might be making advances in certain strategic areas, they still haven't reached the actual battle lines of these major cities, and that's going to still take them a very long time, and it's going to cost the Russians an awful lot to do it. Not impossible, but it's
mud season is
still
coming.
a tough fight out east.
Right.
And mud season is coming. We got another month or so, maybe 5-6 weeks, and then what's called the Rasputitsa is going to happen. And that has always been a problem for anybody trying to invade this part of the world, because when the ice and the snow melt, everything becomes mud, and it's not just mud, it's this kind of thick tar mud that everything bogs down. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that, but it's a double-edged sword because we also need relief from the heavy cold. So you're happy to see the Rasputitsa come because it slows down the Russian advance potentially, but it's also desperately needed because we need relief from this really Arctic cold winter that we're having.
Yeah, remarkable. Phil Ittner, his podcast On the Edge. Ittner Philip on social media. Philip Ittner, PhilipIttner over on YouTube. Phil, anything you want to add to that, by the way?
Just a new episode this Sunday. We're coming back. We will not be silenced. We will not stop platforming and putting out Ukrainian voices, even if our mainstream press has forgotten this place.
Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Phil, it's always great talking with you. I appreciate your coming by with us every week. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Tom.
We'll be back. Welcome back. Let's see here. Alfredo in Mountain View, California. Hey, Alfredo, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Maureen Comey, the daughter of James Comey, she successfully prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein.
That's correct.
And she was fired by Trump because as a retaliatory act.
Yeah, because she successfully prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell.
Correct. But my question is this. Why is it that the Democratic body that is overseeing the Epstein case haven't subpoenaed her to testify? It seems to me like she will be a wealth of information regarding the Epstein case. She probably had access to all the Epstein files, wouldn't you think?
That's all true, Alfredo. The problem is that she was an attorney for the government. And so you've got attorney-client privilege, the government, which the government can assert. They can say, we are the client of this attorney. She worked for us. And therefore, she can't testify to these things.
And she's been fired. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I know she's been fired, but that doesn't end attorney-client privilege. And really? So my guess is that there's probably nothing that she could actually say in public. In fact, looking at how, she's been pretty feisty, but she's also been very circumspect in what she's saying. And I think, I'm guessing that that's the reason why, or some variation on that. I'm not a lawyer, but, something like that.
One last question, Tom. You know how Trump wants to federalize the voting. Mm-hmm. Having a federal agency like the FBI confiscating votes from states, isn't that a way of federalizing the vote?
Well, arguably, yeah, that's a step in that direction, and a dangerous one, frankly, in my opinion. So
yeah.
Yep. Alfredo, thank you. Nice to hear from you. Tom in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Tom, what's up? Thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
Hey. No problem. Hey, Tom, let's just keep it simple. I know it's kind of out of the news, but let's call it what it is. Sending American soldiers into Venezuela to take their oil at gunpoint is called armed robbery.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, there's no other way to say it.
It's the worst kind of neocolonialism.
Yeah, it's just, and it's wrong. It's armed robbery.
Yeah. No.
And
disagreement
end
here.
of story. All right, you take care.
All right, thanks a lot, Tom. I would add to that again, this is the kind of thing where if the Democrats take control of the House of Representatives, and there is like every indication that that's going to happen. So, maybe we should say when, but you just never know. I saw a graphic a couple days ago that Trump has hundreds, like $700-800 million, and the Democrats right now for the upcoming races, and the Democrats have like $50 million. So he's got all this money that he's going to be pouring into these races. They're going to identify, it's going to come down to maybe 30, 40, 50 races. And so the billionaires are going to be in on this game. Trump is going to be in on this game. It's going to be a hell of a lot harder than we think, even with their numbers sucking as badly as they do. But we've got to get out there. We've got to be educating our friends. We've got to be waking people up. This is a big deal, this election that's coming up this year. I'll be right back with you. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Welcome back. 23 minutes past the hour. So yesterday, Pam Bondi testified before Congress, before this House committee, and she had this burn book, they call it, which is a list of all the things that you can say that are nasty things about the Democrats who are asking questions. Now, this is an absolutely pathetic performance. And a photographer not only caught the burn book, but caught made a photograph. This is Roberto Schmidt, he's the Getty photographer, got a picture of the contents of the burn book, and it looks like the Department of Justice is illegally spying on members of Congress. The Department of Justice, of course, is part of the executive branch, Article 2 of the Constitution. Congress, of course, is Article 1 of the Constitution. These are supposed to be separate institutions. They're not supposed to spy on each other. You've got all these Republicans. Remember when Trump tried to overthrow the election in 2020, there was a handful of Republicans who were in on it with him, or who were very, very tightly, shall we say, on his side. And the Department of Justice, the FBI, got their telephone records. And they didn't get the actual conversations. They just got who called who when, right? The metadata. And the Republicans are just hysterical about this. Oh my God! You've got the Department of, Biden's Department of Justice was looking into us, and we're members of Congress. You can't do that. Well, now Pam Bondi's doing, something far worse, frankly. I mean, gathering metadata in a criminal investigation. At least there was a criminal investigation. There was a justification for it. These Republicans were arguably participating in a crime, the crime of sedition, the crime of overthrowing the government of the United States. But here you've got, Pramila Jayapal going in and looking at the files, and Pam Bondi spying on her. This is illegal. And by the way, Republicans have figured that out. I mean, this is just incredible. You've got Tim Pool. I think he's the guy that Russia was paying a lot of money to. But anyhow, he's a pro-Trump podcaster. And he goes, man, we are a nation of adult children. I think Pam Bondi has done, I give her more credit than people do. I was about to say I think she's done a decent job, but I can't. I just can't say it. I don't think we're serviced by the American people by this kind of yelling. White supremacist Nick Fuentes. Pam Bondi needs to be impeached. You lied about the existence of the files. You lied about unindicted collaborators and Kyle Rittenhouse, for God's sake, the kid who's famous for murdering people. He calls on Pam Bondi to be removed from her. Pam Bondi needs to resign. And then Eric Erickson, I mean, who is one of the smarter and more thoughtful right-wing talk show hosts and bloggers. He compared her appearance to one of the most infamous cases in military history, 1788, when an Austrian cavalry unit turned their guns on their own people, thinking it was the enemy, and slaughtered them. He said the Battle of Carabasas, a holy emperor, Roman Emperor Joseph II and his generals could at least thank God that Pam Bondi had not yet been born, or the self-inflicted wounds would have undoubtedly have been worse. He says, unfortunately for America, Trump decided to choose people from central casting who look the part more than fit the role. When one goes to central casting, one does not find the best and the brightest. One might wind up with a puppy killer at Homeland Security and Bondi at the Justice Department. And I'd add a drunk in charge of the Department of Defense. It's just incredible. So what's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
I do want to share with you a few little choice tidbits from yesterday, but then I'll pick up your call. Stay with us. Book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Ezra Klein's new book, Why We're Polarized. This is from the introduction, and it's a couple pages into it. I'm starting out here. I have found that American politics is best understood by braiding two forms of knowledge that are often left separate: the direct on-the-ground insights shared by politicians, activists, government officials, and other subjects of my reporting, and the more systemic analyses conducted by political scientists, sociologists, historians, and others with the time, methods, and expertise to study American politics at scale. On their own, political actors often ignore the incentives shaping their decisions, and academic researchers miss the human motivations that drive political decision-making. Together, however, they shine bright light on how and why American politics works the way it does. There's much awry in American politics, and I won't in this book attempt to catalog all of it. But I've come to believe the master story, the one that drives almost all divides and most fundamentally shapes the behavior of participants, is the logic of polarization. That logic, put simply, is this: to appeal to a more polarized public, political institutions and political actors behave in more polarized ways. As political institutions and actors become more polarized, they further polarize the public. This sets off a feedback cycle. To appeal to a yet more polarized public, institutions must polarize further. When faced with yet more polarized institutions, the public polarizes further, and so on. Understanding that we exist in relationship with our political institutions, that they are changed by us and we are changed by them, is the key to this story. We don't just use politics for our own ends. Politics uses us for its own ends. There are many different types of polarization possible, and I'll discuss some of them later in the book, but the locus of polarization I'll discuss is on political identity. And that requires saying a few words about a term that should be very useful in American politics, but that has become almost useless: identity politics. A core argument of this book is that everyone engaged in American politics is engaged in identity politics. This is not an insult, and it's not controversial. We form and fold identities constantly, naturally. Identity is present in politics in the way gravity, evolution, or cognition is present in politics. That is to say, it is omnipresent in politics because it is omnipresent in us. There is no way to read the literature on how humans form and protect their personal and group identities, literature I will survey in this book, and believe that any of us is immune. It runs so deep in our psyches, so activated so easily by even weak cues and distant threats, that it is impossible to speak seriously about how we engage with one another without discussing how our identities shape that engagement. Unfortunately, the term identity politics has been weaponized. It is most often used by speakers to describe politics as practiced by members of historically marginalized groups. If you're black and you're worried about police brutality, that's identity politics. If you're a woman and you're worried about the male-female pay gap, that's identity politics. But if you're a rural gun owner decrying universal background checks as tyranny, or a billionaire CEO complaining that high tax rates demonize success, or a Christian insisting on nativity scenes in public squares, well, that's just good old-fashioned politics. With a quick sleight of hand, identity becomes something that only marginalized groups have. The term identity politics in this usage obscures rather than illuminates. It's used to diminish and discredit the concerns of weaker groups by making them look self-interested. Special pleading in order to clear the agenda for the concerns of stronger groups, which are framed as more rational, proper topics for normal political debate. But in wielding identity as a blade, we have lost it as a lens, blinding ourselves in a bid for political advantage. We're left searching in vain for what we refuse to allow ourselves to see. All politics is influenced by identity. Those identities are most powerful when they are so pervasive as to be either invisible or uncontroversial. American is an identity. So too is Christian. When politicians, including the irreligious, end speeches with "God bless America," it's not because they're making an appeal to a higher power, but because they're making an appeal to our bedrock identities. If you don't believe me, ask yourself why there are so few open atheists or even agnostics in national politics. This does not mean that politics is an equation solved by locating identity. Identity shapes our worldview, but it does not mechanistically decide it. And while we often speak of identity as a singular, it is always a dizzying plural. We have countless identities, some of them in active conflict with each other, others lying dormant until activated by threat or fortune. Much that happens in political campaigns is best understood as a struggle over which identities voters will inhabit come election day. Will they feel like workers exploited by their bosses, or heartlanders dismissed by coastal elites? Will they vote as patriotic traditionalists offended by NFL players who kneel during the national anthem, or as parents worried about the climate their children will inhabit? What we are often fighting over in American politics is group identity and status, fights that express themselves in debates over policy and power, but cannot be truly reconciled by either. Health policy is positive sum, but identity conflict is zero sum. The book Why We're Polarized by Ezra Klein. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com. So back when Donald Trump debated Kamala Harris, he was asked about world leaders and whatnot, and he went off on this thing praising a guy named Viktor Orban and saying he's a tough guy, he's smart, he's the prime minister of Hungary, and he loves me, basically. So who is Viktor Orban? Well, it turns out Viktor Orban is a guy who took over Hungary in a regular election, the prime minister, and then turned it into basically a neo-fascist paradise for right-wingers. All the media is now controlled by right-wing oligarchs. He's packed the courts. He's changed the Constitution so that they have things like gerrymandering and voter suppression, so he always wins every election. He throws people in jail for criticizing him, even on Facebook. I mean, this is what Hungary has become. Fox News loves it. Tucker Carlson did his show from there for a week, and that's what Donald Trump wants to do to America. You can read the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Trump's New Hero, the strongman who crushed democracy in Hungary. Check it out.
I heard a crown hit the marble floor. Didn't come from God, didn't come from law. Came wrapped in peace with a price tag high, signed in gold while the truth walked by. They said it started with a ceasefire pen, but it didn't stop there. It never does, my friend. One chair, one name, one iron hand, drawing borders no vote ever planned. Who made you king of the world tonight? Who gave you the earth and the stars in the sky? No ballots cast, no people heard, just a throne built on $1 billion word. You don't rule me, you don't rule us. You don't get the world because you say you must.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Just real quick here. Some of the things from yesterday's bizarre testimony by Pam Bondi. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett looked Bondi directly in the eye, looked her straight in the eye and said, quote, "I'm not saying the president is a pedophile, but there's a lot of evidence in these files that suggest he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles." Bondi's response was silence. When Representative Becca Pallant, pushed Bondi, Bondi's response was, "You only represent a tiny state." When Democrats asked about victims and accountability, Bondi started talking about the Dow Jones average. Seriously. And then Jared Moskowitz said, and I quote, Trump's name appears more times in the Epstein files than God's name appears in the book about God, the Bible. Trump's name also appears more time in the Epstein files than Harry Potter's name appears in all 7 books about Harry Potter. He asked her for answers to his questions. She refused to answer anything. Deborah Ross asked about Ghislaine Maxwell being transferred to this country club of prisons. Instead of answering, Bondi changed the subject. Pramila Jayapal said, would you turn to the survivors and apologize for what your DOJ has put them through? Bondi's response, she attacked Merrick Garland, and then she said, "I'm not going to get in the gutter with this woman." Seriously? Apologizing to the women who were standing right behind her, the victim, these who as children were raped by Jeffrey Epstein and perhaps by Donald Trump and certainly by other men. She wouldn't even look at them. The American people deserve better. Donald Trump this morning went to his Nazi-infested social media site and tweeted, "AG Pam Bondi, under intense fire from the Trump-deranged radical left lunatics, was fantastic at yesterday's hearing. The one thing that has been proven conclusively, much to their chagrin, was that President Donald J. Trump has been 100% exonerated of their ridiculous Russia type charges. Slimeball Democrats have been proven guilty in the Epstein scandal." And then he picks out Thomas Massey, right, the Republican from Kentucky. "Nobody cared about Epstein," Trump wrote this morning. "When he was alive, they only cared about him when they thought he could create political harm to a very popular president." Oh, God. David in Chicago. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Hey, thank you, Tom. I wanted to thank you, first of all, because I have learned so much more from you in this years listening to you that I did in high school about civics and history. So thank you very much. Keep going. And yeah, yesterday was an embarrassment with Pam Bondi. But I wanted to talk about immigration system, how broken it is. I have an example myself. We have been waiting since 1993 for one of my sisters to get her visa. Wow. Finally, next month we have our interview. So we waited over 20 years for her visa. Now, we call them illegal, or some people call them, the right calls them illegal and undocumented, but they're not really undocumented. My sister and thousands, millions of them have this paperwork that is called ITIN, which is this paperwork that they need to pay taxes. So they contribute to the country, they pay taxes, they have been here illegally, but then they still, they're not undocumented. There is a document they have. The government knows about them.
Oh, the problem is that ICE is either ignoring or pulling those documents.
Correct. Now, here's the funny thing. Here's something funny that happened. We also have some relatives I'm from Chicago, neighboring state, Indiana. Guess what happened about last year? Mm-hmm. Some of these meat packers that we are related to, luckily, they got a work permit. So it looks like some of these red states are getting work permits. Now, they're only getting them for 4 years. What does that mean? They want to keep their workers. They're not going to. So you're not going to see
until Trump is gone.
ISIS. Yeah, you're not going to see these ISIS people chasing anybody in these red states. One, because they have permits, and one because it's all about attacking the blue states.
Right.
So, and lastly, if I can just say, if you guys didn't watch the Super Bowl, do it. It was an excellent show. It was nothing but happiness and family values.
Yeah,
something
that
this country needs right now.
Yeah. Exactly. Bad Bunny did a great job. Yeah. He did an absolutely great job. And it was a beautiful, beautiful show.
So yeah, wish me luck with our sister's case of 20+ years waiting.
Wow.
We finally getting it.
Well, good luck, David. I hope it works out. Keep me up to date, okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay, good talking to you. Thank you. Kathy in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Hey, Kathy, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Tom. I just wanted to say that the SAVE Act did not pass yesterday. The SAVE Act passed in April last year. The Save America Act passed yesterday, and it's worse than the SAVE Act.
Thank you. You're right.
There's a couple of bills out there that are worse, but now they're both in the Senate, and you're right, John Thune has said he doesn't have the votes to get rid of the filibuster, or to pass it, which is a good thing, but they're horrible.
Mm-hmm.
They really...
they target women specifically. I mean, in addition to making it hard for everybody to vote, particularly anybody who doesn't have the financial resources to hire a lawyer or to, go jump through all the hoops to go track down their birth certificate. In some cases, some hospitals that have been out of business for 30 years. But this provision that says that your birth certificate and your passport have to have the same name, or you have to have proof that you went before a judge to change your name, that's going to throw 70, 80 million American married women off the voting rolls.
Well, it would throw me off.
It would throw my wife
I'm
off.
not married, but I changed my middle name when I was in grad school. My mother had just died, and I took her maiden name as my middle name. So now my name has both my mother and my father in it, but it doesn't pass by birth certificate.
Right.
And it took me 2 months to get it changed on my driver's license.
Wow.
So, I mean...
And all of this is predicated on this claim that there's non-citizens who are voting. And when the states actually looked at this, and you've got a bunch of Republican states just in the last 2 years, based on Trump's lies, who said, okay, we'll spend millions of dollars to audit every single person on the voting rolls. And in Idaho, they found like fewer than 30 people who were not citizens on the voting rolls. Most of them had never voted. In Utah, I think it was 1. They go state after state, you find maybe 8, 10, 20, 30 people who are on the voting rolls who are not citizens. I think there was maybe 100 of them here in Oregon. These were people who just checked the box when they got their driver's license. They never had any intention of voting. They don't vote. I mean, the whole thing is based on a lie, Kathy. That's what's so infuriating about it. And a lie that the Republicans have been telling since the 1960s when they started this crap, and that the media never calls out. It's crazy.
I didn't realize that it went back. I knew that there were people who said that there was a problem with the vote in 1960. I was 6 years old at the time, so I don't remember it. But a friend of mine once made that statement to me, and I looked it up, and there really wasn't. But
let me quote to you from the New York Times. This is the New York Times, October 30th, 1964. The 1964 election was where they really started this. The Republican Party started this. This is October 30th, 1964, for the New York Times. Quote, Republican officials have begun a massive campaign to prevent voter fraud in the election next Tuesday, a move that has caused Democrats to cry fraud. The Republican plan, Operation Eagle Eye, is designed, according to party officials, to prevent Democrats from stealing the 1964 election. The Democratic National Chairman, John M. Bailey, has criticized the Republican plan as a program of voter intimidation. He has sent a protest to all 50 state governors and has alerted Democratic Party officials throughout the country to be on their guard. There's no doubt in my mind, Mr. Bailey wrote, the state chairman yesterday, that this program is a serious threat to democracy as well as to a Democratic victory on November 3rd. That was 1964. That's how long the Republicans have been playing this game, and that's how long the media has been ignoring them playing this game.
I wonder if that didn't start really in 1960 election when people claimed that JFK didn't win because people were stuffing the ballots.
Well, yeah, they said, Mayor Daley had voting machines. He was dumping them in the Chicago. All that stuff has been disproven. And by the way, if Kennedy had lost Illinois, he still would have become president. He would have had to lose Texas to not be president. And that wasn't happening. His running mate was Lyndon Johnson. Kathy, I'm out of time, but thank you so much for the call, and your point is so well made, and thanks for pointing out that there, in fact, are two SAVE Acts. You're absolutely right. Thank you. 46 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. Stay with us. And welcome back. Eugene in Seattle. Hey, Eugene, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hi. I've got a couple of, I don't know if you call them alerts or PSAs about solutions. Well, actually, I just wanted to, of course, say, thank you for all your good work, and I liked your piece on the
It's completely unnecessary,
NFL.
Eugene, the thanks. And let me just say to everybody, no need to thank me on things. It burns through your talking time.
Okay.
But back to you,
But
Eugene.
I did like I liked your piece on the NFL,
thank you.
Comparing it to regulated social democracies. And I'm in here in Seattle, and I was watching our celebration yesterday of the Seahawks, and there were 1 million people in the streets. And I just thought, oh my God, if we could somehow harness that energy towards other causes. But but I was calling just to, and I didn't know if you were aware of the holiday that was created, I don't know, 12 years ago or so, International Clash Day, the band The Clash by a
Sean's
radio
applauding, but I
station
don't
up
know
here.
anything about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and and the leader of that band, Joe Strummer, was dedicated his life to fighting fascism, racism, prejudice, and all his music. And so I don't know. I just it's a good holiday to get behind and get inspired by. And
great.
And then the other thing, I don't know if anybody brought up on your show, Jimmy Kimmel the other night had the idea of of universities, maybe cities, counties, people coming up with awards for Trump.
Right. Yeah, like FIFA did. Yeah. No, I saw the segment. Yeah, it's wild stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was a good idea. Just flood him with sort of satirical.
And it was a great way to point out what a pathetic man baby he is. Eugene, thank you. Well said. I appreciate the call. Tucker in Berwyn, Pennsylvania. Hey, Tucker, what's up?
Hey, Tom. How are you today?
Good. What's on your mind?
Good. First, I wanted to give out my condolences to Jeff Tiedrich, who lost his wife on Tuesday.
Yeah, I sent him a note yesterday. It's Jeff Tiedrich is the owner of Crooks and Liars, but he's a prolific poster. He's got a Substack newsletter. Everybody's entitled to my opinion, I think it's titled. And he's very active on social media. Good guy, and his wife just died, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he reads you because he used Morbidly Rich last week.
Yeah, he does. We correspond, actually. I've known him for years. Okay. He used to publish my stuff on Crooks and Liars all the time.
Okay. So why I called, the Republican Tom that calls in from media all the time says that ICE agents aren't active in the Philadelphia area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about 25 minutes outside the city, and they're opening an ICE office right down the street from where I live.
Oh, geez. So Philly is next?
It would appear. Yeah, someone asked who was next recently, and it looks like they're setting up roots here.
Yeah.
And so
I wonder if they're going to try to overwhelm another city the way they did in Minneapolis. I think they got their fingers burned on this one. I'm guessing that they're going to just, spread out among a dozen cities and just do their dirty deeds, hoping that nobody notices.
I'm gonna talk to Christy Houlihan, who's rep. I went to her town hall on Monday, and see if she can help us with permits and whatever we need to protest it.
Tucker, I got to run, but thank you, and keep up the great work. Good talking to you. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back, 9 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Rich in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, listening on WRRD. Hey, Rich, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I watched the Pam Bondi testimony yesterday before the Jim Jordan committee. I mean, Jim Jordan in this household he has a wife named Polly, and to tell you where we come from politically, we teach the kids that that's where we get the expression "Polly wants a cracker." But
it was kind of an embarrassment. In fact, calling what Bondi did testimony is a stretch. Back to you, Rich.
Well, I'm calling in about her, what I term now redactionary politics. Mm-hmm. We watched that, and then we were talking to one another, and we said, who is she partnered with? Does she have a husband? So we looked up John Wakefield, and we found out that he's a graduate from the Thunderbird School of Global Management, which, because, as I told your screener, I'm so old, my association with Thunderbird is a jingle that goes, what's the word, Thunderbird? How is it sold? Good and cold. It was a cheap wine.
Yeah, I remember. It was like right up there with Mad Dog 2020.
There you go.
But, Bondi was making, she was making $150,000 a month as a lobbyist before Trump brought her in for AG. Yes. So she and her husband may not be qualified to do anything. I have no idea. But the family's not, wanting for cash.
No, they're not. But my point is, and here's my beef, we tried to find out what was the birth date of John Wakefield, Pam Bondi's partner or husband. Even that is not definitively named, whether they're married or simply partnered. It wouldn't matter in this household as long as they were happy together. But nowhere can you find out John Wakefield's date of birth or what his age is. And I did learn something, because when I heard Thunderbird School of Global Management, I thought maybe it was some sort of proprietary school that's very low ranked. It's not. It's an extremely prestigious school training global leaders, it said, with a focus on cross-cultural fluency, international political economy, and regional business expertise, all of which those three sent up red flags in terms of friendliness of this administration with Russian oligarchs. But all I want to say is, at a time when they're digging into all of our private information, just mining it, it really ticks me off that when you look for someone associated with the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America, Pam Bondi, you can't even find out the guy's actual birth date, because as it's described, they are an intensely private couple.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and it says that they're not married. She's been married twice before, and that he's a business and finance professional in Tampa with a long career in banking, corporate development, and real estate investment. So,
yeah, real estate. I'll leave it there, Tom. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Good talking to you. Wayne, where are you, Wayne? And I'm sorry, I just have a minute or so here. If you need to get to it quick.
I'm in Arkansas. Real quick, don't you dare accuse me of a crime. But anyway, that was my favorite quote there. I'm sick and tired. I'm listening, and I only listen to an hour or so a day when I can because I want to ruminate on it. But last hours, I've been listening to your book. Love it. I am actually tying together what you're saying, and when all of the, this is my question to you, Tom. When all of these world leaders and people, people tied to the world leaders are in the Trump files, the ones that have Epstein mentioned from time to time in them. When all this is going on, we know now that there are 7 countries that are already, imprisoning, at least investigating based on what's been released so far. And we still haven't made a single. My question to you is: Trump going to end up having to be? It would be a very, very bad thing if we got guillotines out. But is Trump our Marie Antoinette or not?
His gilded ballroom, his taking over $4 billion or making over $4 billion since he became president, his family's cashing in on his presidency. It's all so disgusting. I'd say it's Marie Antoinette level disgust. I'm with you. I'm no advocate for guillotines. But the legal process, yeah, I'd like to see some of this stuff exposed. I'd like to see him prosecuted for accepting bribes, for soliciting bribes, frankly, and his boys as well. And Jared Kushner's out there, negotiating on behalf of the United States with no legal portfolio. What he's doing is a crime also. So I'm with you, Wayne.
Exactly.
Wayne, always great to hear from you. Thank you so much for the call. On the other side of the break, Mary Trump is going to drop by. Is her uncle experiencing Alzheimer's? She's a clinical psychologist. She would know. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Today is The End of the Myth, From the Frontier to the Border Wall in the Mind of America by Greg Grandin. And this is from Chapter 1, entitled All That Space. The British colonies in North America were conceived in expansion. America was an aspiration, an errand, and an obligation born out of violent Christian schism and Europe's interminable religious and imperial conflicts. Depending on the intricacies of their particular interpretations of Revelation, the Protestants who settled New England might have understood flight across the Atlantic as a way of escaping European war, or they might have seen migration as a chance to open a new front and win those wars on a new soil. Here in the 1600s, in the eschatological nebula of the New World, was the first paradoxical image of America as simultaneously pristine and despoiled, empty and at the same time filled with primitives begging for deliverance. Subordinated to Catholic Spain, which had conquered its part of the Americas a century earlier and stood as the great obstacle to Reformation England's rise as a world power. All yell and cry with one voice, Libertia, Libertia, Richard Hakluyt, a clergyman and court minister, wrote in the late 1500s, hoping to convince investors and his queen to establish an American colony. As Puritan society frayed under the harsh conditions of settler life, the frontier threatened and beckoned. The dark woods were filled with witches, and they were witchy, inviting hither. The forest was the place where the community could be redeemed and given new purpose, a chance to once again start anew, or it could be a place of more sorrows, wilderness sorrows, as two early Puritan patriarchs described the hardships that awaited those who ventured into uncharted territory, where whatever solidarity existed would be smashed into atoms as settlers scattered to escape the rule of the clergy. People are ready to run wild into the woods again and to be as heathenish as ever, warned Increase Mather. Expansions could be, often in the same sermon, held up as the cause of and the solution to the difficulties of establishing Christian communities. Either way, Native Americans had to get out of the way. They could die. They waste, they molder away, they disappear, said one Puritan chronicler of indigenous people who had succumbed to European pestilence years before the arrival of the Mayflower in 1620, thus clearing the earth for the establishment of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. God made way for his people by removing the heathen and planting them in the ground, said another observer. They could be murdered. The holy terror unleashed by the Puritans was, according to the historian Bernard Balin, driven by fears of what could happen to civilized people in an unimaginable wilderness and fears of racial conflicts in which God's children were fated to struggle with pitiless agents of Satan, pagan antichrist swarming in the world around them. Survivors could be enslaved. The first patent granted in colonial America in 1626 was to a Virginia merchant and planter, William Claiborne, for inventing a device that would not just restrain Indians, but also make them work. Claiborne was given an Indian to experiment on for the trial of his invention. Colonial records do not say what this innovation might have been, only noting that it was not successful. Or they could be pushed further and further west. The prodigious and relentless population, complained New Orleans Spanish governor in 1794, progressively drives the Indian nations before them and upon us, seeking to possess for itself this vast continent which the Indians occupy between the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Appalachian Mountains. More than a century and a half later, writing in the early 1950s, the Mexican author and diplomat Octavio Paz made much the same point. America was, he writes, if anything, geography, pure space, open to human action. Since it lacked historical substance, ancient social classes, established institutions, religions, and hereditary laws, reality presented no obstacles other than natural ones. Men struggled not against history, but against nature. And wherever there was an historical obstacle, indigenous societies say, it was simply erased from history, reduced to a mere natural fact and dispensed with accordingly. Evil is outside, part of the natural world, like Indians, rivers, mountains, and other obstacles that must be domesticated or destroyed. End of quote. The American Revolution is a permanent revolution, Paz went on, a nonstop expulsion of, quote, all elements foreign to the American essence and a constant invention of itself. And anything that stands in the way of that invention, anything that is in any way irreducible or inassimilable to perpetual creation, be it Native Americans, Spanish America, or history itself, quote, is not American. Quote, in other places, the future is one of man's attributes because we are men. We have a future. In Saxon America, the process is inverted and the future determines the man. We are men because we are the future, and everything that has no future is not a man. End of quote. The United States, Paz said, offers no room for contradictions, ambiguity, or conflict. The nation flies forward swiftly, as if weightless across the land. Trying to stop North Americans moving west, Stephen Austin, the founder of Texas, said over a century earlier, was like trying to stop the Mississippi with a dam of straw. The drive west waxed and waned and burst forward with great passion during key moments. The book, The Edge of the Myth, by Greg Grandin.
We say fight back!
Purposive behavior?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the third hour of our program. On the line with us, our friend Mary Trump, the PhD from the Derner Institute of Advanced Psychological Studies, has taught graduate courses in trauma, psychopathology, and developmental psychology. She writes a column at Substack. It's really worth subscribing to. It's free. It's called The Good in Us. Just go to Substack and plug in Mary Trump's name or The Good in Us. She's also the host of the Mary Trump Show podcast on YouTube, which is just exploding, and the author of The Reckoning, Our Nation's Trauma and Finding a Way to Heal. Her previous book, Too Much and Never Enough, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. MaryTrump.org is her website. Mary Trump is her Blue Sky handle. Mary, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Tom. It is so great to be here with you. It's been far too long.
It has been. It's so nice to see you again. I'm curious, as a clinical psychologist, as somebody who really understands this stuff, and as a very astute political observer, your thoughts on who Pam Bondi is and why she would behave the way she did yesterday.
Yeah, that was quite a performance. And let's be clear, it was a performance. That was something she planned well in advance. She had no intention of answering any questions, legitimate or otherwise, put to her. Her sole purpose yesterday was to protect her boss and do more damage to the once storied Department of Justice. We are seeing this pattern over and over again. The line of people willing to sell what little is left of their souls to protect Donald Trump is astonishingly long. And Pam Bondi is just the most recent example of people who are more interested in hanging on to their own power and their proximity to power than they are to doing their actual jobs. So why? And this is something that I've been struggling to answer for a long time. And it's actually a question we're going to have to try to answer as it has to do with the entire country. But in terms of specific individuals, I think we have to give Donald some credit. He's spectacularly good at finding people weaker than he is and exploiting their weaknesses. So he also is very good at finding people who are characterologically capable of doing his bidding. And Pam Bondi, as we know, has been the kind of person willing to cover over or do favors for people like Jeffrey Epstein for decades now. So the question is, given the fact that so many of these people seem to exist and currently they are in positions of great power, what are we going to do about it? And how is this playing to the rest of the country?
Yeah. Well, historically, the guardrail has been putting rational people, or at least people who knew how to behave rationally, I'm thinking of Richard Nixon, into the White House. Obviously, Nixon kind of blew it. I mean, 40 of his toadies went to prison, including 2 members of his cabinet. Maurice Stans, his Commerce Secretary, and his Attorney General, John Mitchell. But, you know, generally speaking, we've had presidents, and even Nixon to a large extent, who hired people based on their competence rather than their loyalty or their ideology. I mean, there might have been a partisan litmus test, but it wasn't as acute. Here we have somebody, it appears, your uncle, Donald Trump, who thinks of himself not as a president of the United States, but as the emperor of America. I'm quite certain, based on the things he said, he's never read or certainly doesn't understand the U.S. Constitution. Is that number one? Do you agree with that analysis? And in fact, I would extend it. I would say that if you look around the world, you see the same thing in Malaysia, you see it in Indonesia, you see it in Turkey, you see it in Egypt now, where you see it in China and Russia, obviously, Hungary, where autocrats have basically taken over countries. And it's the exact same script. So is this an individual psychopathology of Donald's, or is this, what you do if you want to become rich and powerful and you don't care how many people you hurt, which I guess is a psychopathology in and of itself, or what, and how do we protect against this in the future?
Yeah, well, it is an individual psychopathology that has huge resonance because of how much power he's accrued thanks to other people. And I mean, this is something we need to understand about Donald. He is not intelligent. He is a weak person, but because certain myths were created about him, because he came from such wealth, privilege, and connections, he has at many times along the way been of use to other people who are smarter and more powerful. That's one of the reasons we're here. I completely agree with your analysis of what's preceded him. And even though, it's fair to think that Nixon was a horrible president because he did horrible things. But compared to Donald, he was actually he did some reasonably good things as president, despite the horrific things he did.
Yeah, he created the EPA.
Yeah, he created the EPA, exactly. And he did believe, just as even to some degree, George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush believed in the constitutional order, despite how they sometimes pushed against it. Donald, on the other hand, does not. He has never read the Constitution. There's literally no evidence to suggest that he's read anything other than newspaper clips about himself over the course of his life. And it was not necessarily his idea, but other people, especially those who were eager to put Project 2025 into place, that he be surrounded by sycophants, people willing to do his bidding or the bidding of people he was willing to empower, people like Stephen Miller, et cetera. So we have a situation now where there are fewer and fewer guardrails because professionalism is gone. Institutional safeguards are gone. Institutional knowledge, generations of which were built over the course of the last several decades, have been wiped out. Also, the professionals at the DOJ and other agencies across America can be replaced by people like Pam Bondi, who understand that their mission no longer is to protect the rights of the American people. Their mission is to protect Donald Trump. And that's what Pam Bondi did yesterday. She was speaking, or I should say screaming, to an audience of one, and it was all to prove to Donald Trump that she is not the Attorney General of the United States. She is his defense attorney.
Yeah, and it reminded me of these horribly embarrassing North Korean-style cabinet meetings that he has, where you go around the room and everybody gets a chance to kiss his ass. You mentioned a while ago, I think it was just a few weeks ago, that there was a possibility that Donald Trump may be experiencing dementia. My mother died of Alzheimer's. I've seen this up close and personal. It's a horrible, horrible way to go. And his father did, your grandfather. What is your, as both a family member and as a psychologist, we're talking about Mary Trump, by the way, what's your assessment of where he's at? And what do you think about this persistent rumor that these bruises on the back of his hand are the consequence of his taking a regular, I don't recall if they're weekly or monthly, but the major anti-Alzheimer's drug is given by infusion into the back of the hand, that might be what's going on?
Yeah, obviously, you don't need to be a neurologist or medical doctor of any kind to know that there's a very significant genetic component to Alzheimer's. My grandfather did have Alzheimer's. In fact, he had it for many years, and the signs started showing up when he was in his late 70s. And Donald, as we know, is 79. Right. So part of the reason I think that it's likely that he is suffering from some kind of cognitive issues is because of what other people are saying. Medical doctors who do understand that you don't just get an MRI for fun, and that an MRI coupled with repeated cognitive assessments typically means that doctors are concerned that there may be some issues going on cognitively. And then, of course, we can see what's going on with our own eyes, whether or not the Trump regime is willing to believe or allow us to believe our own eyes. He is suffering from bouts of aphasia. He is sleeping during the day. That's a bad sign. Mm-hmm. He sometimes, and this just from my own personal experience with my grandfather, causes a great deal of alarm. He often gets the same deer in the headlights look where he seems not to know where he is or who he's with. So there's plenty of evidence to suggest that he is in all sorts of decline, physically, psychologically, and cognitively.
Yeah, and then on top of that, of course, you've got just normal age-related cognitive decline, and brain shrinkage and all that sort of thing. We have about a minute and a half before we hit a hard break. I can't stop. We're talking with Mary Trump. Mary, tell us about The Good in Us, your Substack column, and your Substack show, also the Mary Trump Show, for people who might not be familiar with them yet.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'm very fond of our community over at The Good in Us, and I started it about 3 years ago, and it was after President Biden had been elected, and it was extremely important to me that we try to focus on the things that bring us together, the things that really are good about America that we need to get back to and nurture, because that hadn't happened, especially during COVID. And I think it's even more important now because the first slightly more than year of the Trump regime has been horrifying. And many people are being targeted and harmed. Our democracy is on the brink. And I think we need more than ever to come together and find a way forward to a country where everybody is valued and everybody is equal.
Yeah, it really is extraordinary. And you're doing, and your YouTube podcast?
That is me kind of being a pundit, which is, something I never imagined I would be.
Yeah, no, you're doing an absolutely marvelous job. Mary Trump is our guest. Her Substack is called The Good in Us. If you just go over to Substack.com and either plug in her name or plug in The Good in Us, it'll pop right up and you can subscribe. It's free. And of course, you can always support people, but it's absolutely free. And you can also look at Mary Trump on YouTube. Mary, thank you so much for dropping by. It's always great talking with you. It's so nice to see you again.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to see you.
Thank you. It's 18 minutes past the hour. Is Pam Bondi going to get fired? And why is Trump going after Republicans with a White House meeting? Stick around. We'll talk about that.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls right after this. And welcome back. David in New Windsor, Maryland. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I was just sitting around. I got to wondering how many immigrants does Trump have working on his motels and his properties and his golf clubs and stuff. And so I Googled it, and the first thing that popped up was an article from The Guardian. And it said in November 2025, Trump applied for over, I think it was like 200 H-1 visas for immigrants to come work with properties.
He's always done this because he thinks having people having white people with a European accent is cool. And so on all of his properties, he tries to get Europeans to come over and work instead of Americans.
What do you think? They're all Europeans, or you think there's some Latinos and other nationalities there? Because some of the other articles tend to kind of point to some of his employees saying that a lot of them were illegals working there on his properties.
Well, historically, he has. I mean, there was the big scandal back in the 80s, I think it was, where he had hired a bunch of Polish guys, brought them into the country. They helped build Trump Tower, and then he refused to pay them and got them deported. So it wouldn't surprise me. And also, I remember the pool boy when they were going after the stuff that was the top secret documents that he had hidden at Mar-a-Lago. And he had a pool boy, and he had a guy who was in charge of his camp. They both had Spanish surnames, last names. But I doubt they were here illegally. I think that ever since 2016, it's pretty unlikely that he's been hiring people who are undocumented. It's just a guess, but yeah.
Well, I was hoping we could get ice to go visit them sometime.
Wouldn't that be, just perfectly beautiful? David, thank you for the call. It's great to hear from you. Brady in Dalton, Georgia. Hey, Brady, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching us on YouTube.
Thank you, Tom, for taking my call. Today I'm calling about these ICE detention facilities. I think they're a giant heist. When you consider the amount of money that's being spent on this program, average detainee, one person, $165 per day.
Oh, some of them are as high as $750 a day.
Capacity, 75,000 people. That's as we build on more capacity.
Yep.
At 75,000 per person, at the low end, $165 a day, that's $12,375,000 a day.
Yeah.
You project that out for a year, that's $4,516,875,000. And they're making the money through the contracting, the equipment, the people not paying any taxes. It's a huge scam, and the Republicans are not in it about politics or anything else. It's about the Benjamins.
Yeah, no, I agree. We now officially have more people in our concentration camps than Hitler had in his in 1939. 5 years into his, or 4 years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 years into his chancellorship. I mean, it's wild, what Trump and these guys are doing, building these concentration camps. I don't call them detention centers because detention implies something temporary. These don't appear to be temporary. And CoreCivic and I'm forgetting the other company, but the two companies that are the major contractors for this, these are billion-dollar companies that make massive contributions to Republican politicians. I see it as a way of recycling our tax dollars, Brady. I think you're absolutely right. Thanks so much for the call and for pointing it all out and doing the math. Thanks, Brady. We'll be right back. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them.
They say the vote is sacred. Then they call it a crime. They whisper fraud like a loaded gun, pointed at the ballot, not the one who lost. Same old lie, just a newer tongue. Power don't ask permission, it just takes the cost. They lost the count, so they burn the trust. Call the people cheaters, call the truth a bluff. If votes don't matter, then silence must. That's how a republic turns into dust.
If the vote is a lie, then the lie is the law. If the count can be clear, what are we fighting for? You don't steal elections with tanks or troops. You just teach the people not to believe the truth.
60 years deep, same dirty play.
24 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Talks have stalled. The White House is getting frantic here. Tomorrow, I believe, maybe the day after tomorrow, but anyhow, this weekend, funding for the Department of Homeland Security ends. They got a 2-week extension, you'll recall, and this is the end of the 2 weeks. And the Republicans are still unwilling to say, yes, ICE has to take off their masks. They have to stop killing people. They have to stop beating people. And they have to stop arresting people without actual warrants signed by judges, which the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution requires. Republicans are refusing to go along with this because they're all terrified. These poor, pathetic Republicans are so terrified that Donald Trump might say something about them on his Nazi-infested social media site that will cause a few of the snowflakes out there, these MAGA snowflakes, to not vote for them. I mean, this is just downright pathetic. So Manu Raju over at CNN, he says the Senate is slated to hold a procedural vote at 1:30 today. Well, that's already happened. It failed, and then there's a recess. It's not even clear if either the House or the Senate will be in session next week. And this is going to get interesting. I'm predicting, and this is just, my opinion, but my prediction would be that the major pressure point that the Trump administration could bring to bear on the Democrats is TSA. TSA is part of DHS. This funding battle is not going to cut funding to ICE because they were given their own separate pot of money by the big beautiful bill, or the big ugly bill, or whatever you want to call it. And so ICE is going to be unaffected. But, but we're trying to make a statement here. Enough already. ICE does work for DHS, and if you shut down DHS, but my prediction is that what they're going to do is they're going to slow down the lines at the airports as a way of punishing us, we the people of the United States, and saying, see, the Democrats did this to you because they won't fund the Department of Homeland Security. Democrats would rather have illegal aliens voting in the elections than have you get on the airplane on time. I may be wrong, but that's my prediction. We'll see. All right, what say you? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break, right up until the end of the hour. It's 27 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann program, the True People's Media. And we'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Hartmann program. Call 202-808-9925.
By the way, a federal judge just ruled that Whiskey Pete is unlawfully retaliating against Senator Mark Kelly. Good on them. Today is How to Get Rid of a President by David Priess. And this is from the chapter Rejected by the Party, starting on page 12, kind of mid-chapter. Presidents need not be thrown out at the polls on Election Day to find themselves dislodged from the White House. History shows us that a chief executive's own political allies can remove that incumbent when they perceive him as unpopular or unfit. Refusing to nominate a president for a second term, or better yet, getting the incumbent to realize that he should walk away before it becomes an embarrassing vote at the convention, does bring the party significant pain. But many politicians have calculated that discarding their own party's toxic president by internal action is better than waiting for the voters to do it. This dynamic remained absent for the first half century or so of American politics. George Washington, who didn't represent any formal party, set a precedent by stepping away from re-election after 2 terms. Successor after successor followed suit, keeping the support of their parties until they left office after 8 years. Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, and Jackson lost the next election, both Adamses and Van Buren, or met the Grim Reaper, Harrison. John Tyler, if only in this one respect, was a trendsetter. He began a 6-president cascade of men who failed to appear on their party's ballot in the general election after their first term. One, Zachary Taylor, literally had no choice. Like Harrison, he died in office. The others, by staying alive through their 4-year terms, could have carried their party's banners again on Election Day. Not one did, as national agonizing over slavery and other tensions within each of the major parties made it difficult for any president to build and sustain a governing coalition. Of those 5 chief executives, only James Polk left with a solid reputation and a ledger of successes. He'd told Democrats upon his nomination in 1844, "I shall enter upon the discharge of the high and solemn duties of the office with the settled purpose of not being a candidate for re-election." And he stayed true to his word. It was just as well. Only 3 months after what would have been his second inauguration, he died at the age of 53. The 3 presidents who followed Polk, the forgettable series of Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, and James Buchanan, shared 3 characteristics. First, historians routinely rank them among the nation's worst presidents. Second, and related to that, they took no responsibility for resolving the national moral failure of slavery. And third, no matter how they had attained office, they, like future presidents Chester Arthur and Lyndon Johnson, found themselves spurned by their own parties. The Whigs had learned in 1840 that a celebrity candidate seemed to have an easier route into the White House than a party regular. So in 1848, they nominated General Zachary Taylor, a recent hero of battlefields in the Mexican-American War. Despite his lack of solid political principles or any apparent passion for the job, just 2 years earlier, he'd said with apparent sincerity, "I am not and never shall be an aspirant for that honor." Taylor won the election over Democratic candidate Lewis Cass. In July 1850, he became the second straight Whig general to president who couldn't make it to the next election alive. Vice President Millard Fillmore took his place. Fillmore had risen to prominence in New York's anti-Mason party dedicated to exposing and opposing Freemason fraternal organizations, but switched allegiance to the Whigs in the 1830s. In the first year and a half of the administration, inter-party rivals had manipulated Taylor better than Fillmore did, leaving him little to do but preside over the Senate and stew over his fate in a useless job. But as president, he was prepared to avenge perceived slights. Ahead of their expected dismissal, all the cabinet members whom Fillard had inherited from Taylor offered their resignations, which were quickly accepted by the new president. He asked them to remain in place for 1 month. They agreed to stay for 1 week. Fillmore would proceed to fire more previous political appointees than any of his successors had. More than half of those at the State Department, for example, had to find new jobs. The biggest development during Fillmore's presidency was the Compromise of 1850. This set of bills admitted California to the Union as a free state, allowed the organization of the Utah and New Mexico territories without reference to slavery, resolved both the Texas state boundary and the Lone Star State's remaining debt, abolished the slave trade in the District of Columbia, and reaffirmed the fugitive slave law that required the returning of slaves escaped across state lines. Fillmore signed each bill, believing this package of measures had fixed what he considered an annoying issue that kept getting in the way of his other priorities. The compromise bills delayed a war between the states, but at a cost. They not only perpetuated slavery, but split the Whigs further apart, as most Northerners refused to abide by the fugitive slave law. Congressional elections in November 1850 increased the Democratic opposition's majorities in both the House and the Senate. The rest of the president's term was so bad that the highlight might have been the start of Commodore Matthew Perry's voyage to Japan to open that country to American trade, even though he didn't arrive until Fillmore left office. Not long after rising to become the chief executive, Fillmore declared he wouldn't run again in the 1852 election. He reiterated that in 1851. But the trappings of presidential power and the pleas of his remaining party faithful convinced him to retract that pledge and make a late entry into the field of candidates. He portrayed his about-face as a noble personal sacrifice for the good of the party and the country. And during the spring of that election year, 8 Whig state conventions endorsed him. As delegates gathered for what a leading historian of the era calls the longest, most rancorous, and most debilitating Whig national convention ever to meet, the first tally had Fillmore in the lead. How to get rid of a president. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, or one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting progressive talk radio, and tag you're it. Donald Trump lost, voter suppression won in 2024. That's the headline over at HartmannReport.com, and just a brilliant article written by Greg Palast exclusively for the Hartmann Report. He writes, Trump lost. That is, if all legal voters were allowed to vote, if all legal ballots were counted, Trump would have lost the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Vice President Kamala Harris would have won the presidency with 286 electoral votes. And if not for the mass purge of voters of color, if not for the mass disqualification of provisional and mail-in ballots, if not for the new mass vigilante challenges in swing states, Harris would have gained at least another 3.5 million votes, topping Trump's popular vote tally by 1.2 million. Greg brings us the numbers. He lays it out. You can read it over at HartmannReport.com, absolutely free. It's titled, Trump Lost, Vote Suppression 1 at hartmannreport.com. Check it out.
I've seen the barrel of a borrowed gun 6 inches from my name. A man in uniform, smiling white like mercy was a game. He said no one will ever know. Said it soft, said it slow. That was power, that was truth. That was how the world was run. They don't need laws when fear will do. They don't need justice when they got you on your knees, eyes shut tight, praying you make it through the night. They say obey or die. That's the most powerful lie. Dress it up in flags and shields, call murder how order feels. They say obey or die.
36 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So Donald Trump is lashing out at Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, the Republican governor of Oklahoma. See, Stitt is the chairman of the National Governors Association, and which is all 54 governors, I guess. Four of them are 55 governors, excuse me. There are 5 territories. And you know, his thought was, if we're going to have a meeting, if Trump is going to invite the governors to the White House, because the National Governors Association is having their meeting in Washington, D.C., if Trump is going to invite them to the White House for a meal, it should be all 55 of them. But Trump said no. He does not want the governor of Colorado to come, and he does not want the governor of Maryland to come. The governor of Maryland, of course, is a black guy. Governor of Colorado is a gay guy. But mostly the governor of Colorado is keeping Kim Davis. Remember the election person who, I believe it's Kim Davis, the election person who refused to go, you know, she was so into she got sentenced to 9 years in prison. And so Trump is saying, nope. He says, I even invited the slob of a Governor J.B. Pritzker and the horrendous California Governor Gavin Newsom scum to the dinner. Yeah, right. So the governor of Oklahoma, the Republican governor of Oklahoma says, quote, because the National Governor Association's mission is to represent all 55 governors, the association is no longer serving as the facilitator for the event, and it is no longer included in our official program. Carolyn Leavitt then comes on and goes, well, it's the president's home, so he can invite whomever he wants to dinners and events here at the White House. Yeah. All right. What's on your mind? Beachside Bill in Orlando, Florida. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Afternoon, Tom. Hope everybody's well out there. And he says it's his home. No, it's our home.
Exactly.
The White House, I mean. It's our
exactly.
home. It's our home. That's nonsense. That's just... So I have a couple of observations of Pam Bondi yesterday. First off, I noticed when Jasmine Crockett was talking to her, when they panned out from her, there were 4 of the survivors there wearing their white shirts, looking right at Pam Bondi. So she, you know, even though she wouldn't turn around to apologize to them, they were looking right at her, and she couldn't avoid it. You know, looking. You know, she kept trying to look over to the other way. Yeah. It just you can see it there. That's just really, you know. But praise to Jasmine Crockett. Yeah. And the thing that disappointed me most about the Democrats, one thing that they did not delve into Pam Bondi being Florida Attorney General from 2010 to 2018, when a lot of this activity was going on, and she had to have known about it, and they did not press her on it. A couple of them, you know,
I was surprised by that, Bill. I mentioned that yesterday. I was surprised by it. There was one moment where I thought, and I believe she thought that question was coming. Why, when you were the chief law enforcement officer of Florida and Jeffrey Epstein was living in Florida and raping young girls after he'd already been convicted in 2009 of being, you know, a sex offender. He's from 2010 to 2018, as you point out, she was the attorney general. During that period of time, why did she not even once investigate him? What the hell? She had to have known. I mean, there's no, she can't deny it. Well, she was bragging about how many sex offenders she prosecuted when she was running for re-election.
Yeah, and another thing I noticed today, and again, and this is, I'm going to Senator Ashley Moody. She's the new senator from Florida. Quickly, because she 2019 till last year, she was DeSantis' attorney general, our attorney general. So she had to have known something too. But today she got on Keith Ellison. They had the ICE agents in front of them there, the senators, and she kept talking over like Pam Bondi. You can see it. Look at it later. It's on C-SPAN. At a Senate hearing today. It was just really odd. These people are there, Pam Bondi has no business being there. I wonder how she can be disbarred, and I would have to do it here in Florida. It'll never happen. But the woman, she's just not. She doesn't belong. I mean, and one other quick thing, I felt for Congressman Swalwell yesterday, Tom. When he asked Pam Bondi for her help because his family keeps getting death threats, and all of them do. Yeah. And I think that they need. We're going to have to be protecting our Congress people.
Yeah, the FBI. For people that don't know what we're talking about here, Bill, Eric Swalwell pointed out in a very reasonable interaction with Pam Bondi, pointed out that he and his children are getting credible death threats from people that they have identified, and the FBI refuses to investigate or prosecute these people, presumably because he's a Democrat. And it is just so wrong. And she said, well, I'll look into it. If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. They have completely politicized the Department of Justice. If you are a Democrat, if you're a Republican, you get pardons, you get subsidies, you get millions of dollars. They raised $5 million, gave $5 million to that woman who got killed in the Capitol building, Ashley Babbitt. Yeah. If you're a Republican, you get everything. If you're a Democrat, you get the back of their hand. And it's just wrong. That's not how the Department of Justice should be run.
And Congressman Swalwell came out with a few F words there, because the emails, he produced the emails, he quoted them, and just the threats against us. And I felt sorry, I really felt for him, because it must be an awful burden, for your family and all that.
It is. I can tell you, I've gotten a few of those myself, and it's just no fun. But I've never had a problem. I've turned people over to the FBI. I've never had a problem. But apparently Swalwell does. But he's on, Trump's bleep list. Yeah. So, okay, Bill, thank you for the call. Good talking to you. Brian in Baltimore. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind today?
Hey, thanks, Tom. Love hearing you actually call things what they are all the time. One thing that I think everybody should remember is Paul Weyrich back in 1980 announced to everybody the crimes going forward that the GOP would do with regard to voter suppression. And he said, I don't want everybody to vote. As a matter of fact, our leverage in election quite candidly goes up as the voting populace goes down.
That's right.
And I think that has been a driving factor. He actually is a founder of the Heritage Foundation as well. That's correct.
That's correct.
And I think this all comes together, and they try to disguise voter suppression as some type of patriotic thing. And it's just disgusting. And I'm tired of seeing it over and over again. We can't even get all of our citizens to vote.
I agree. Sean, I'm going to play this audio out of my computer here. This is the co-founder of the Heritage Foundation. Speaking in a church, in the basement of a church in Dallas to a group of Republican activists, Paul Weyrich. And
now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections quite candidly goes up as the voting populace goes down.
There you go. There you go.
Yep. It's right out there. I think he was the first of the Trumpian out front criminal broadcasters. They tell you the crime they are going to commit right in front of your face.
Yeah. Well, he certainly did it. And, Paul Weyrich has been around. He's no longer with us, but that was a major thing. Brian, thank you. Thanks for pointing that out, and thanks for listening to us there in Baltimore. 45 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a minute. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, a place where smart people get their news. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Talk media for the sane among us. Yes, we are still here. We are still sane. Stick around. And welcome back. CJ in Shreveport, Louisiana. Hey, CJ, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I wish I could have talked to Mary Trump.
She's great, isn't she?
Isn't she? Yes. Anyway, I've not, actually read her book or anything. Can't afford it. But, no spam caller. Anyway, not now. Anyway, I think... I don't know if she's ever raised this possibility. I think there may be another psychological or personality disorder that our current president may have beyond, malignant narcissism and the dark triad and dark tetrad. And that is dissociative identity disorder, a.k.a. multiple personality disorder, formerly known as.
I'm quite familiar with it. I disagree with you, but build your case.
Well, now, hear me out.
Yeah.
We know he has at least 4 aliases that we know about. John Barron, John Miller, Carolyn Gallego, a woman, and David Dennison, the one who had the affair with Stormy Daniels.
Right, but these were all people that were invented for the purpose of helping the ego that is Donald Trump, the primary ego.
Have you ever heard the phone call that Jonathan Greenberg, who was at Forbes, John, quote unquote, John Barron calls Jonathan Greenberg in May of 1984 to
I have heard
convince
those clips.
him.
Yeah.
Have you listened to him? Because it's the president. It's Donald's voice.
Yep.
But the cadence and he's doing either an Oscar or at least Emmy level acting job there, or that's another personality.
I think he's
and
just
if you look
acting.
at his IMDb filmography, he has never portrayed a character that wasn't him, or someone very like him.
Right.
He's never actually portrayed a character he's never shown real acting ability in his career that got him that star on the Walk of Fame.
I think anybody can pitch their voice a little funny or talk in an abnormal cadence.
It's more than that. It's more than that. It's word choices. It's speech patterns. But it's not just that. What's his youngest son's name?
Barron.
Okay. Who names his youngest son after an alias?
Well, yeah, although Barron is also a royal title, and it's a way of suggesting that if you're born into the Trump family, you are born into royalty.
B-A-R-O-N is the title. B-A-R-R-O-N is the name. And
that's just an affectation.
I think Barron Trump might have been conceived or named when John Barron was the dominant personality in charge.
It's quite a theory, CJ. Quite a theory.
Yeah.
I don't know. Dissociative identity disorder is a really serious thing. And people who have
it happens because of child abuse usually.
That's the main theory. I mean, there's a bunch of theories about why it comes about, but that's one that's fairly well documented.
Yeah.
But it also, true dissociative identity disorder causes people to behave in ways that are quite conspicuous when they're altering their personality, when they're in different personalities take over. I see no evidence of that. I see evidence of Donald Trump being a con man. And con men are generally fairly good actors. It's the skill set, the ability to just lie with easy facility. He does it every single day. He'll look right into the camera, he'll look right into somebody's face and lie to them, knowing it's a lie. And he sounds completely credible. So I don't find John Barron shtick being inconsistent with that at all.
Which personality is president now?
Yeah, there you go. Or is it Satan? CJ, thanks for the call. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. People in the Rust Belt states know all about tariffs. They know that tariffs kept jobs in the Rust Belt states for centuries, literally, that America was built on tariffs. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump got elected in 2016 was because he talked about tariffs. But for some reason right now, the Harris-Walz campaign, or Democrats in general, are reluctant to talk about tariffs. They call them sales taxes or something like that. They really need to be a little more straightforward because people, particularly in the industrial Midwest, or in the Rust Belt, as we call it now, are not dumb. They know what's going on. They know where we've been and how we got here. And I think it's pretty important to be talking about tariffs and what they are, how they work, and how they can bring manufacturing back home. I wrote a piece about it for Hartmann Report. It's titled, Why Trump is Wrong and Alexander Hamilton Was Right About Tariffs. And I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating at hartmannreport.com. Check it out. Welcome back, 9 minutes before the hour. Picking up your calls here. Andrew in Columbus, Ohio. Hey, Andrew, thanks for listening to WGRN. What's up?
Hey, Tom, thanks for taking my call. I want to strongly suggest everybody call these files what they are. They're not the Epstein files. They're the Trump Epstein files. And that will catch on, and I think get people's attention and think more seriously about the crimes our president has committed. So I'm urging you and everybody else listening to use the Trump Epstein files phrasing. So that's my suggestion.
I like that, Andrew. And in fact, that occurred to me when I had an earlier caller who made reference to this in the last hour. And I agree. And particularly if Jamie Raskin is right that Donald Trump appears in the Epstein files more than 1 million times. I mean, the current number that everybody seems to agree on is 32,000 or 38,000. But that's post-redactions.
He's the kingpin.
Yeah, and that's post-redactions. But what Jamie Raskin was looking at when he was, searching the database was pre-redactions. He plugged in Donald Trump's name and he got 1 million hits. That's pretty mind-boggling.
He was the kingpin. Yeah, he was the kingpin, and I think Epstein was the minor player, believe it or not. And they probably want us to keep using the Epstein files phrasing, but Trump was the kingpin. So the Trump Epstein files is what I refer to them as.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody will.
I'm with you, Andrew. I'll try to remember to start doing it. Thank you very much.
Just try it out and see what happens.
There you go. Thanks a lot, Tom. Andrew. Good talking to you. Jim in Fenville, Michigan. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. No guns for ICE.
Yeah.
They do not need guns. They're unvetted and untrained. Many are trigger-happy white supremacists, over 40% with criminal records.
Where'd you get the 40% from?
5 lives would have been saved if that policy had been enforced.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Where'd you get the 40% from, Jim?
I heard that over the radio. It could be more or less.
Well, nobody knows because we don't, there is this Dutch website that purports to have released the names of 3,000 or 4,000 ICE agents. But I haven't seen any follow-up on that. I haven't seen anybody doing any kind of deep dives on them. I'm assuming people are, but none of it has been popping up to where I could see it.
Right. The amended federal 1968 Gun Control Act prohibits anyone convicted or indicted for a criminal act punishable for a term of more than 1 year. A dishonorable discharge, a court order from domestic violence, restraints from owning or possessing a gun. How many ICE members who have not been vetted should not own a gun?
Right.
Trump's illegal, corrupt extraction ICE policy is more dangerous and inhumane than Hitler, Stalin, or Putin regarding the use of guns to handle unarmed street protesters.
Well, I strongly disagree with you there, Jim, and I think that by being hyperbolic like that, we do ourselves a disservice. Putin is a mass murderer.
In the early stages of
murderer.
Hitler's takeover, the Brown Church did not have or need guns to handle street protesters.
No, they didn't. They beat people up. But that was before they were given official status. So, Jim, thanks a lot for the call. David, and it's hard to talk to somebody who keeps talking over you. David in Bandon, Oregon. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I had the pleasure, put quotes around that, of going to a TPSU meeting. They had a big conference the other night.
Turning Points USA.
Coos Bay, and they had, it was about, I'd say, half full, more protesters outside than inside. Anyway, they had a couple of kooks on there, and they were talking about a they call it a subdivision of TPSU called Club America. I wonder if you'd ever heard of it.
I have not. What do you know about it?
I know that this guy claims that they have 51 Club American chapters currently in Oregon schools.
Whoa! Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, these are the Turning Point USA front groups, essentially, that they're trying to get into all of the public schools in America. Yeah. This is a major project that's funded by right-wing billionaires who hate democracy. They want to make America safe, or make America and the world safe for the autocrats and the oligarchs.
Right. Anyway, a bunch of kooks, and actually Mo Bannon, they call her. She actually showed up, Bannon's sister.
Oh, really?
She was part of that presentation.
Anyway, was it weird, or did it seem relatively normal, this TPUSA meeting you went to?
It was beyond weird.
Specifically, how?
They have an agenda They have an agenda that's pretty scary. I'm going to research it a little bit more, but it really opened my eyes.
Okay. Well, get back with us if you have any specifics. I'd love to hear them. David, thank you for the call. I'm sorry I'm out of time here. Thanks for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the folks around you. Stay safe, and I will catch up with you tomorrow.
Been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.